about my lifestyle. I'm the new theme with a bright smile. Catch me when I'm out in public, always show them love, and I know they love it. Give you a reason to love me this season. I'm taking my chances, I hope it ain't.
Alright, welcome to Romera Records Podcast. Today we have on
Louise Page.
Awesome. How's it going, Louise?
Oh, really well, yes.
Great. So we actually we're restarting pretty much because not because we messed up like I did last time with Trey, but she was telling me some good info about just contacting people, and I told her, like, as always, I usually just search people on Memphis, like a hashtag or something like that. And she said, people can be pretty sketchy about contacting and everything. So I want her to just elaborate a little bit on, I guess, just contact people, because I'm a super friendly person when it comes to like social media. Like,
super friendly, super hands.
Super friendly. Yeah, you go. I like that. So it's easy for me to just I treat nobody like they're special. Like, I don't care if you've got 10 million followers or 10 followers. I'm going to treat you the same way.
Right.
So for me to just be a person that you had no idea who I was and to get the message like that, how do you want to approach that?
Right, so I'm a very friendly person as well, and I didn't grow up in Memphis. I grew up in a really small town, so I was kind of like a rube when I first moved here, and really friendly, really trusting, and I don't know, I'm sure your listeners' minds are already going down the path of I've ended up in some strange situations because I was too trusting and too friendly. So now that I really put myself out there and I'm advertising my music publicly, my very first response, if someone DMs me about a podcast or a show or anything like that, if they've direct messaged me, my first response is send me an email. And in my experience, that kind of weeds out people who aren't actually serious, or really what it usually is nothing too nefarious, but it's just someone just wants to hang out or go on a date, and they don't actually have an opportunity for me that's a real opportunity. And for whatever reason, in the email format, I feel like that becomes super clear. If generally, if there's not a true opportunity there, people won't even email, but if they do, it becomes just really obvious that this is not an actual thing. But Jackson did email me, and so here we are, sitting here for this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, even when I contact people, I try to give. I actually got this from Trey Stafford. He was telling me, it was kind of weird at first because I messaged him on Instagram, and then we were talking a little bit. He was like, "Yeah, send me a calendar invite." I was like, "A calendar invite?" I was like, "All right, this dude's like a business person."
Yeah.
So when he told me that, I was like, "All right, maybe I should start, giving people more info." And then when I think it was the day we did the podcast, he was telling me whenever you email or message somebody, give them as much detail as possible, because it makes them realize hey, I'm serious about this and I want to get it done. So that's why now when I message people, I tell them I try to suggest a date, I suggest a time, and I send them a link to the podcast. So I try to find a good podcast that they might be interested in. And I mean, I've only done 17, I think. So I just try to find one that they might be interested in, and I send them that link as well, so that they might be like, oh, okay, yeah, I might do this.
That's the way to do it, because that made me think of something else. Outside of people maybe having some ulterior motive or intention, I would say probably the more common thing is people just not having follow through. Yeah. Kind of impulsively sending you oh my gosh, we should write this song together, we should play the show together, and it just never happens. So the follow through is important, the details are important.
So how often do you get requests to do music with people?
Oh man, that is a big question. I'm kind of, I think, at an interesting place with music right now, where I'm a completely independent musician. I'm not signed to any type of label. I mean, that's not to say I don't get any help. I have a band that I love, and they're great. And the music I've recorded, I've worked at Young Avenue Sound, which I have a great relationship with them. And the sound engineer I work with there, Calvin Lauber, is amazing, and he helps me a lot. But as far as a manager or a booking agent or any type of record label, I don't have any of that.
Nice.
So it's nice in a lot of ways, because I maintain ownership and control over all my music, and I really know what's going on, but I'm starting to get to a place where it's a little bit overwhelming.
Really?
So
that's good though.
It's a good problem to have, definitely. So I would say I really do try to conduct most of my business through email. And once I've waded through, the spam email, I'm probably getting 5 or 6 emails a day with some type of something that someone wants to do with me, be it a show or a podcast or collaborating in some other type of way. And honestly, I'm sure that there are some stale requests sitting in my Facebook messages and DMs, but I've just kind of had to focus on one inbox because it gets overwhelming a little bit.
So after I found you, I messaged you, but I was going on like a messaging spree. Like I messaged a ton of people, and
I'm not special. Doesn't matter if I have 10 followers or 2 million.
But I was waiting for your reply. I was like, all right, I finally found like a Memphis musician, and I was like waiting on your reply, and I didn't get a reply for like I think it was a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and I was like, dang. And then finally you messaged me back, and I was like, oh, nice. And then you told me to email you, and I was like, no. I was like, I have to wait longer. And then I emailed you, and then I think you finally replied like maybe a couple more weeks later. And then
you're really exposing me here.
No, it's fine. I mean, as you said, you're busy. Like me. Yeah. So I have a full-time job as an automation technician.
Well, that's cool.
That's my job at Owens Corning. But like I do music, I do photography, I do video, I do all this other stuff as a side gig. And that's sometimes that's people's full-time job. But for me, that's just side stuff, and I'm constantly busy. But like I don't get 5 or 6 emails a day for people to work with me and stuff like that, and people are asking me stuff. I'm just doing what I want to do. So for you to be busy and then to actually reply to me, I see you doing a show. I've never done a show before. Like, so you're doing shows, you're doing all this stuff. So I was just happy that you even replied. Because a lot of people don't reply.
No, I appreciate the understanding, because that really is what happens is it's like a prioritization thing, like some people, if we're talking about a show that's already booked, it's happening in 2 days, they might get a response in 30 minutes to an email. But if it's something where like, I don't know, where I don't know you and we're kind of talking details, I might be a little slower to reply. That is something I'm trying to get better at though, is staying more on top of my emails and DMs, but never ending list of things.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people who say that they don't check their comments. And I'll go to like famous musicians and look at their comment sections just to see if they're replying to the comments. Because if I see that you're not replying to your comments, I don't like comment on your page. I'm like, oh, they don't reply to them anyway, so why would I even reply?
I try to reply to all my comments.
Yeah, I noticed you did,
really
so that's why I hit you up.
Yeah, even if it's just like some emojis, I'll reply some emojis back, because I really appreciate that people care and that they like what I'm doing and that they care enough to comment on this thing I'm putting on social media. That really matters to me. I've kind of changed my mindset around social media this year though, a little bit, if you want to hear about that a little bit. Go ahead. So so I'm 26 years old, been playing music since I was a little kid, but I've been releasing music out into the world since 2017. Okay. And I've been doing music full-time technically since the end of 2018, but I would say it's been about a year. I would say it's been pretty much exactly a year that I've been really on my grind doing music full-time. And I've always liked social media. Like, I remember when I was in high school, Facebook was huge, and I loved it and was on it all the time. And even before that, in middle school, I was IMing boys and all of that.
MySpace?
I never had a MySpace.
Oh, you missed out.
I did. I'm the right age. Like, I could have been one of those 12, 13-year-olds with a MySpace, but I wasn't allowed to have a MySpace.
Oh.
But then, Facebook was a newer thing, so I kind of wised up and didn't ask permission before I made my Facebook. And then I got Instagram like right before college started. I got on Instagram, and the Louise Page name really comes from, Wheezy is a pretty common nickname for Louise. I had one really, really good friend in high school who called me Wheezy, but nobody else really did. And I happened to be with her when I was making the Instagram account. Louise Page was already taken, so we were like, oh, well, we'll do Louise Page. And then I said I grew up in a small town. I grew up in central Pennsylvania, so connection to Memphis is that my mother's from here. My grandmother lives here. And I got into Rhodes. It was the best school I got into. So I was like, well, here I go. Come down here. So then I come to school, and a bunch of people started calling me Wheezy. And I swear to you, it's just from the Instagram name. Like, I've never asked anyone to call me Wheezy.
Yeah.
But I think it's cute. I'm fine with it. I really go by Louise, though. Anyway, so social media has always been something I loved, and it's always been a big, like, kind of distraction or procrastination thing for me. So when I started getting really into music and doing that full time, it was kind of cool to have an actual excuse to be on social media that was productive, you know? And I do think that it's pretty amazing that we all have access to this platform where we could potentially reach billions of people, you know? It's pretty amazing. But last year, as I was doing music full time, I was getting pretty addicted to social media, which I gave you that long-winded backstory to sort of express that I've maybe always been a little addicted to it. But, you know, I was just on it all the time, and it wasn't feeling productive anymore, you know, and I was getting really, really obsessed with tiny, tiny little things like how many people liked this photo or shared it to their story, or just the nitty-gritty numbers of it all. And I kind of had a little epiphany about it where I was like, I'm not a social media influencer. Like, that's not my job. That's not really what I'm trying to do in this life. Like, I'm a musician, and social media is a tool for me to advertise my shows and my music, but I don't work for social media. You know what I'm saying? So I've kind of flipped my mindset about it, where I'm like, I do not work for Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Those are tools that I use. Like, they work for me. Correct. And if they ever start to feel stressful, or if I start to feel, you know, I think a lot of people can get really anxious about it, or even depressed if they're really deep into it and a post that they were counting on doesn't perform well or something. Like, yeah, I'm just not trying to be that lost in the sauce with it. I still love it and have fun with it, but I've kind of, I think you can even see on my page, I don't post quite as often as I used to, and it's because I'm working more on the actual music. That feels really, really good. So 2020 positive change towards my social media. But unfortunately, for those of you waiting for a reply to your DM, that might mean that it takes even longer to get a response. But you can email me. There's a link to email me. I'll reply to that a lot quicker. Anyway, I just thought you might be interested in that too, because you're creative on social media, and I'm sure, I don't think anyone's immune to it, that the feelings that can come with the numbers that are all over social media, like your followers and who's following you back and who's liking your posts and who's watching your videos. Like, those numbers can really get in your head, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people just go out of their way to make sure they had like a lot of followers, which I can tell. So I had a long conversation with a friend about the difference between like having a ton of followers and having a ton of interactions.
Yes.
And to me, interactions are way more important than followers. So for instance, we're actually talking about how being popular on YouTube is way more important than social media, because you can have way more views and like comments and stuff higher on YouTube than you can on social media. So we did the math, and it was like, gosh, I forgot. I think we looked at like Kylie Jenner, because she has maybe like 100 million followers or something like that. But I went to like one of her pictures, and she had like, I don't know, maybe like 3 million likes, and I was like, that ratio is terrible.
Yeah, that's true, really.
And then the comments, it's probably like, I don't know, 50,000 comments. I was like, I would hate to have 1 million followers, but only like 50 people have something to say about what I'm doing.
Right.
And then, but like, if you post something on YouTube, if somebody has like 10,000 followers, they might have 1 million views on their post. And then comments aren't really huge on YouTube. Sometimes they can be, but just the views compared to what you're posting to your subscribers, and then your likes compared to your followers it's outrageously, the ratio is much better on YouTube.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I really love making music videos. That's kind of that's something I've been doing for a couple years, and I'll tell you what, it is definitely not a financially lucrative thing to do, making music videos. Like, it's kind of a money pit, but it's sort of something I do for myself because I really love it. And kind of, I guess I sort of partially intuited a little bit about what you're saying, but I just noticed that the couple of songs I made into music videos got way more engagement everywhere else.
Yeah.
Like, more people knew about the song, more people listened to the song on Spotify and Apple Music. So I do think that, especially in this world we're living in, like, people respond to visual branding and visual images.
That's why Instagram's so popular.
It's true, yeah.
It revolves around a picture or a video.
I've gotten really into Twitter in the last year, honestly. I was never super into it, and maybe part of why I like it is just because it's a new platform to me, and I do love words. Like, I love, my other love besides music is language and writing, and my lyrics are important to me in my songs. So I like that Twitter is kind of text-based, but I can tell personally that Twitter is owned by a different company than Facebook, because it feels like Twitter is a bit more equal opportunity than Facebook and Instagram are, purely in that the algorithm is different. I don't know enough about algorithms to really tell you how, but you see random people on Twitter who have 1,000 followers get totally viral tweets, have 1 million likes. And I don't really think that would be possible on Instagram or Facebook. You would need to build up your following first, or get super lucky and have a famous person share your post or something. But that's something that sort of intrigues me about Twitter. And I think YouTube is a little bit like this too, that it feels a little bit more like, if the content is good, there's a chance that it'll take off. Whereas there's kind of a bunch of legwork involved with garnering a following on Facebook and Instagram before anything can really.
The best word to describe what you were just talking about is Twitter and YouTube are more raw. Like, it's almost, Joe Rogan had a podcast with Jack something, I can't think of his last name, but he's the CEO of Twitter.
Oh, okay.
And
Jack Tweetington.
But he said he almost considered having like a second Twitter where it's like there's no rules, because Twitter kind of has rules for the sake of like advertisement, because you might not want, Coca-Cola might not put an ad on Twitter because of such and such, like they allow people cussing and stuff like that, but like Facebook and Instagram kind of have that censorship. Like, you can't see like tits.
That's super true.
You can't be naked on Instagram.
You can definitely be naked on Twitter.
Yeah,
learned that the hard way this year, because the things will just pop up and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Because I'm all soft now from only being on Facebook and Instagram. I'm like, oh my god, like, I can't believe that's allowed on here.
You're like dropping your phone.
No, I'm like, Grandma, look away. I didn't know this was on here.
Yeah. So Twitter, it's definitely, as you were saying, it's like you have the ability to blow up on that. And I was having a conversation with my friend about that, because we were saying that you can, if you retweet something, then if it's on that person's, if that person retweets like something that you posted, it's going to be on their feed, because if anybody follows them, then they can see that.
That's the thing. You
can't
see
share
things like
Instagram like that.
Yeah, like I follow Lizzo on Twitter. I really love Lizzo, and she, I'm sure she gets tagged in millions of things, and it's just the luck of the draw, whatever comes up for her right when she's checking her phone. But she'll retweet things that fans say about her if she likes them or whatever, and that's just a ton of exposure for some random person,
Exactly.
Because she has, I don't know off the top of my head, but she probably has a couple million followers on Twitter. So that's a cool thing about it too. It's interesting. Social media is really, really fascinating to me, partly because I use it so heavily for my job, and I also think because it's so new, and I'm a part of this curious generation of people where social media did not exist when I was a child, and I sort of watched it come into being. You know what I mean? Like, I have a couple of piano students, so they're the youngest one is 8, the oldest one's 11, and for them, this has always existed in their world. And it's kind of been interesting to me and a little bit sad sometimes too, to watch the 11-year-old student. She used to have an Instagram, and she deleted the Instagram because she said she was getting bullied on there. And,
oh my goodness.
I was sad, and you know, we remember being 11 and being in 6th grade. Kids are super mean, so the bullying isn't new, but I think about that like, man, Instagram did not exist when I was 11, you know, but it did exist when I was 17. It's just, I feel like people who are kind of in my age right now, in their mid-20s, it's sort of weird because this is something that's existed for us as adults and maybe as teenagers, but not as children. So it's strange. I don't know. It's kind of weird to grow up with that sort of slowly infiltrating into your world.
Do you think that it, like a lot of people look at social media as like a poison. They just think it's really bad for people. But when you really like take social media for like what it can do for people, like as we were talking about, you can blow up off of that. Like people can get super famous and things go viral. Mm-hmm. When you have the ability to harness that type of, what's the word I'm trying to use? That motivation. Just that the energy that can happen from that. Do you
potential.
think? Yeah, the potential off of it. Do you think that? I guess kids should start to just try to add more, or do you think that they should just like back away? Kind of like how you were at first, like all on social media, and then you like now I just want to back away a little bit more. How do you think that like somebody who's younger should like approach that as well?
That's a great question, and I think it's interesting. Like, it's kind of I hope this doesn't sound like a cop-out, but I really do think it's all about how you use social media. And I don't know, as far as younger people, I can't exactly tell anyone how to use social media in a way that will make them happy, because everyone's different. But I know that for me, when social media was perhaps becoming a bit negative for me, was when I followed a ton of models and celebrities and people who kind of had, were kind of just Instagram famous and had maybe enviable lifestyles or whatever. That can kind of get in your head and bum you out. And I think especially as a young person, we all, men and women, when you're young and a teenager or in your early 20s, body image is really challenging. And then to be inundated with really perhaps doctored images of thinness and fitness. I know that wasn't very healthy for me when I was in college. It affected my self-esteem. And I worry about that for younger people too. I worry about social media affecting people's self-esteem, be it because they're following a bunch of models or even just because their best friend has 5,000 followers and they only have 200 and they feel bad. I don't know. So that was the kind of stuff that was really negative about it for me. So this was actually before I kind of made my Instagram into a professional music page. Before that, it was just my personal page, and I have like years of personal content archived on that Instagram, but now it's just the music stuff. But a few years ago when I was still in college, I unfollowed pretty much everyone I didn't know in real life. Like if it wasn't a person I knew in real life, I unfollowed them, save a couple of celebrities or artists whose work inspired me. There was nothing about their feed that made me feel less than. It was all stuff that really inspired me. And now the people that I choose to follow on Instagram are all either friends and family from real life or people whose content in some way inspires me in a positive way. So I've ended up creating this great kind of network of other independent musicians and artists on Instagram. A lot of who I follow on Instagram are other independent artists and musicians. And I like it too because it becomes sort of a system of mutual support where we share each other's posts and accomplishments and help each other grow communities. So that's the best advice I can give, is that the one thing that's great about social media is that you, to a degree, are choosing what you see. You know, you choose who to follow. Yeah, there is advertising, so there are some things that maybe you don't get a choice on if you see them or not, but yeah, you choose who to follow. And you know, even if it is someone in your personal life, I've had to deal with this too, even if it is someone in your personal life and for whatever reason their content is negative to you, or it brings you down, or is hateful in some way, like, you can just unfollow them.
Yeah.
And kind of curate a community of people that feel positive and inspiring. So now when I go to my Instagram feed, it's mostly art and music and people that I love. And so it's a happier place. It can still be addictive. You can still get kind of caught up in spending too much time on there. But yeah, I've just gotten completely trigger happy with the mute button, the block button, and the unfollow button. I just don't care anymore. Like, on Facebook especially, if someone posts something that offends me, I just unfriend them.
That's crazy.
It's pretty cold. I'm just like, I can't even see this on my phone, so I'm just gonna unfriend you. Because I used to be a little bit of a keyboard warrior on Facebook.
Really?
I think in the name of justice, I would never bully anyone or anything like that. It would be more like getting really upset about seeing things like that, like someone being bullied or someone saying something really negative and trying to swoop in and argue with people. But you're not going to get anywhere arguing with anyone on social media.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
You can't argue with stupid.
Well,
and
eventually realize if someone is intentionally posting incendiary comments on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, they want someone to argue with them. So you're actually giving them exactly what they want if you engage with that energy. So that's a whole other thing. Like, that's really, I think, the best advice, is figure out what makes you feel happy and motivated and inspired, and seek out that content. And don't waste your time on anything that makes you feel bad or unmotivated or negative in any way.
Yeah.
You know, that's...
Is there
where I've gone with
a
it.
specific person that you can think of that you follow on Instagram that you were like, this person is extremely motivational for me, whether it's music or whatever, like a public speaker, doesn't matter?
Yeah, I can think of a couple. Well, I have this friend who I actually befriended her through Instagram. She is a visual artist. She's an illustrator. Her name is Sarah Day, and her Instagram is Sarah Day Arts, at Sarah Day Arts, SarahDayArts. So I was looking at a larger page. I don't even think I followed the page. I think I was just, it's like a comedy page. It's someone who draws cartoons, and I was just looking at it for a laugh. And she had tagged this person, Sarah Day Arts, in her Instagram story. And I sort of was following the rabbit trail. I feel like we all do that. I was just sort of like, how did I end up here? Like 7 links and ended up here. And when I went to Sarah's page, she had like, at the time, like 15K followers, like a decent number of followers. And it said she had just moved to Memphis. I was like, oh my God, this person who makes beautiful art and kind of has a lot of followers just moved to Memphis. Like, that's really cool. So I DM'd her on Instagram and said something like, I found your page and noticed that you just moved to Memphis. Like, I'm a musician in Memphis. If you ever want to hang out or you need any tips on breaking into the creative community here, like, it's really cool that you moved here. You know, I was trying to be friendly, and now she and I are good friends in real life.
That's
and
awesome.
She's totally involved in the art community in Memphis, and she really inspires me because she is doing this full time. Her illustration, and she makes little jewelry and stickers and prints. You know, she has merchandise that she sells, but she definitely is really good at using Instagram as a tool for her brand. So I admire her in that way, and she also really cares about things like mental health and body image and social justice, and isn't afraid to talk about those things in her art and talk about those things on her social media. And I admire that too, because I really do have pretty strong values, and it can feel scary to be really open about your values when you're trying to advertise yourself as a product, because we live in a pretty polarized world. So sometimes taking a stand on something can mean isolating or, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Distancing yourself from people that might have listened to your music, but that's okay with me. I don't know, I believe in what I believe in, so if that bothers people, then that's okay, because I think it means a lot to people who maybe need to see that, because I don't think I believe in anything super crazy or controversial. It's mostly just like equality for everyone and like love and justice, but she inspires me for that reason, that she has strong values and she doesn't shy away from expressing them on her public platform. I think she's inspired me to do the same. And Sarah, if you're listening to this, shout out to you. Thank you for being a great person, It's really cool to me to see that.
I actually had a conversation with a stripper this one time, and I was talking to her about separating your work from who you really are.
Right.
And she was like, yeah, my parents don't know that I'm a stripper. And I was like, that's wild. Because I think she was like mid or late 20s or something like that. But I was like, when they find out, not if they find out, when they find out. I always wondered like how people, how they handle the two different sides. Because like even famous musicians or even you, like how do you handle the separation between you as the artist and then you as, I went to high school with that girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have a couple answers for that. First of all, I went to high school with that girl thing is funny to me because I was such a nerd in high school, and I know like everyone says that, and I'm not even saying like that. I don't know. I'm not trying to paint a false picture here. Like truly and honestly, I was a nerd. Like I was in the marching band, and
Perfect.
I had braces, and I was a super late bloomer, so I looked really young in high school. Now I'm grateful to be a late bloomer. I like looking young is great now, but when you're 16 and you want to like go on a date, like looking 10 is not really ideal, It's not. Anyway, so I was such a nerd in high school, and I moved kind of far away after high school, so I do think about that. Like, what do the people from my high school even think about what's going on right now? I have no idea. Some of them I do. The ones I've stayed in touch with, very supportive, sweet people. But regardless, it's a tricky question because I do think, like I was saying, I'm a bit of a conflict avoidant person, so I've had the impulse before to sort of depoliticize my social media presence, I guess. And now I'm kind of in a place where I think I can do that to a degree. You kind of have to choose your battles. You can't die on every single hill. But also, here's just one thing, for example. Like, I am really involved in the LGBT community. I identify as bisexual. I have a sibling who's transgender, and so that really matters to me.
So you're like deep into. You're not just like on the outside looking in. You're like
exactly. I'm in it. So so that's the thing where like I'm not really going to tolerate anyone being homophobic or transphobic, and I'm going to speak out about that publicly because I feel like that's important, and I also feel like the people who listen to my music know that about me, and so it's important to them to see that, but I don't know if every single thought that I have about current events needs to be expressed on my personal social media because I'm not going to talk about things I don't know about, I guess. Like I really know a lot about LGBT advocacy and rights and history, and like that's something I'm educated on, so I feel comfortable talking about it. But there's a couple other things where I'm like, I don't know, like how should we solve the national debt? I have no idea, and I'm not going to tell you because I don't know. But that being said, I also have this thing where I think it's really important to kind of actively choose happiness and positivity. If anyone doesn't enjoy my social media, it might be because it really is like pretty mostly positive place. And that's not because I'm ignorant to the state of the world or because I'm, blinding myself to anything bad that's going on, but I'm just sort of, despite the negative things in this world, choose to be a bright presence, and I kind of try to, even if I'm posting about something political or serious or sad, I try to have some type of positive spin. Like, here's a link where you can help if this upsets you too, or here are some things that you can do if you're feeling anxious or helpless in any type of way. Like,
I call that like a call to action.
Yeah, I think that's important. Or a couple of times where I'm trying to think of what was even going on in the world, but I try to put some type of positive spin or call to action on what I do and say, so that it doesn't feel so hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that kind of ties into what I was saying before about, like, you kind of choose what you put in your world as far as social media goes, and maybe there are people out there where I'm the only person they follow who's really saying anything positive, and that could mean something to them.
Yeah.
That all being said, talking about separating the artist from the person, it's a tricky thing. I have a good friend in town, Marcella Simeon. She's amazing. She's a full-time musician, and she really has sort of, in a sense, almost mentored me through the process of becoming a full-time musician. We don't spend that much time together, but when I see her, she has a lot of great advice for me, I guess is what it is. And one of the last times I saw her, I was like, Marcella, I really am trying to have better boundaries between my work life and my personal life. Do you have any advice? And she was like, yeah, find a different job. Like, this is not the job if that's what you want.
That's funny.
Because there are little things like, it can feel like I'm never really off the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we return to our whole conversation about getting messages and DMs, like, I have a very small private Instagram account that I'm not going to say the name of on this podcast, because it's the whole purpose of it is that it's truly only my, it has like 100 followers. It's just my close friends and my family, and I kind of switch to that account sometimes when I just want to look at memes or just be silly and really use social media as not a tool for work but more for pleasure, more how most people use it, because it's hard for me to relax on social media sometimes, because I do use it for my job, and people do contact me all hours of the day and night about work on there. I feel like I don't really get to clock out or clock off. Clock out? What's the right
Clock
word?
out's fine.
Don't really get to do that. Or another interesting side effect of becoming a full-time musician is it has changed my social life a lot. I've always been a really friendly social person, and I've always really loved going out. But now, because I'm out at least once a week, if not, on a really heavy week, maybe 4 times a week, I'm out performing.
Mm-hmm.
And that drains your social battery like crazy, because that, I think, is where the kind of mask on comes in, is like, if I'm out performing, I'm still myself. It's not like I'm a completely different person, but I kind of have to be like the brightest, shiniest, happiest version of myself, because I'm at work and my job is to be a performer, and people don't really want to deal with any nasty bullshit when you're performing, you gotta kind of have a smile on it, even if like someone's kind of creeping you out or kind of annoying you, like you have to be like, okay, well, thank you so much, like great to see you, And the other thing about that is I'm not trying to sound like I think I'm a big deal or anything, because I'm
You're a big deal. You're on the America's podcast right now.
Oh yeah, that's true. This is a big deal. But I think I've achieved some success locally. Outside of Memphis, no one really knows who I am, and that's fine. But it's made going out a little different too, because sometimes when I go out, people want to talk about music, or someone who I might not know might recognize me from a show and want to talk, and those are all things I really appreciate. I don't want to sound like I'm not grateful for that, because I am, but it's like the social media thing, but in real life. Like if I just want to go out and like have a drink with my cousin or something, it can feel hard to do that without still being on, quote unquote on, and like in that bright and shiny performance work mode, you know, like weirdly, you might not expect this, I've become more of a homebody since becoming a full-time performer, because when I'm not performing, I really want to be in my own space, and I need a lot more alone time than I used to, because my job is so extroverted and so social. I've always considered myself an extrovert, and now I'm like, I really do need some alone time to recharge my battery. Like it's not always easy, and it is definitely not I think being a full-time artist of any kind requires a bunch of kind of customer service type energy that I think some people might not expect. And if you have any type of like temper, or if you're not a patient person, it is not the job for you, because there's a lot of human interaction that you have to deal with, a lot of customer service type of interaction, and there's no buffer, you know? Like I worked retail for a long time when I was in college, and if someone is really irritating you, there's someone else that can help them, or you can get your manager or whatever. But for me, like I kind of explained before, I'm sort of a one-woman show here. Like I have to have a really long fuse, which thankfully I have. I'm a pretty calm person, pretty patient person, because I'm not trying to say like I'm dealing with nightmares with people all the time either. Most of the people I deal with are super lovely, but I think anyone who's worked customer service knows that like every so often you're going to deal with someone who's a little difficult. Yeah, be it at a show, someone's maybe trying to talk to me for a little too long and not understanding that like I have things to do, but like I have to be nice to them, and I want to be nice to them because I'm glad that they came out to the show and I'm happy to see them. Or, you know, if I'm selling merch, sometimes people can feel a little strange about that. I don't know. It's just working with people. People are strange, really, is the main thing. People are also wonderful and interesting and great, and I love people, but I feel like this answer got away from me a little bit.
No,
it's just a complicated thing. So to a degree, I have no separation between self and artist, because cheesy as it sounds, I write my songs from the heart, and I want to be myself and like express my values, but also that can be part of what's really challenging about it, is that there's a really blurred line between your personal life and your professional life. And I trip myself out sometimes because in a way I've sort of commodified my own self, my own personhood. Like Louise Page that's my name. That's not a stage name. Like that is my true name that my mama gave me, you know? And that's also my brand. And so it kind of trips me out sometimes that I have commodified myself. Yeah. And I'm happy, I love my life, but it's a strange thing in a lot of ways. And I would say the main difference between artist Louise and personal life Louise is just sort of like, artist Louise is like me with the volume turned the whole way up, and you're not going to see me sweat or like get angry or anything like that, really. It's a weird balance, because you know, you also want to show people that you're a real person with real feelings and emotions and stuff, but you can't do that too much, or it feels like you know, you don't want to seem like you're complaining or whining, or that your page that people are following for music is becoming like your diary. I don't know. That's something I'm still figuring out. I think I do okay at it, but yeah, that's a tough one. The blurred line between self and business is tricky.
It is.
because myself is my business.
It is.
It's tricky. Yeah, it's hard.
Do you think that there is a person that you have seen that does a good job at it, like in this area? Because it's one thing to see, you know, like a famous person doing something, but to have somebody in this area and like, how do I deal with the Memphinians, like the people who are, you know, from this area? And if I go out to, you know, if you want to go out to Corky's or Rendezvous, they're popular barbecue spots,
Right.
and then you've done a concert, and now, you know, somebody sees you eating out, you know, at a place like that, and they're like, oh, that's Louise, so they want to come up and talk to you and stuff like that.
Which I encourage. I'm not saying any of this to discourage anyone from coming up and talking to me. It makes me really happy.
Okay, so
But
you enjoy that.
I do enjoy it, but it's draining at a certain point.
Yeah.
That's what's made me more of a homebody. It's not that I don't enjoy talking to people. I genuinely do. Like, I would like to clarify that. Like, I really, it makes me happy. It builds me up. I feel supported. But yeah, you know, everyone has a social battery and a certain amount of energy that they have to expend on other people, and I'm just expending more of that than I used to. So I need a little bit more alone time. I guess people who do that well, this is what I think the tricky part is that you want to be open to people and you want them to see you as a human being, you know, but you also don't want to come off as ungrateful in any type of way, you know? At least that's the balance I'm trying to strike. So let me see here. People I follow in Memphis who do a good job of that. A lot of the people I already mentioned do a good job of that. Let me think here. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tricky one. Because a lot of people, I think, just kind of end up, if they struggle to balance that, they end up just making their main page really professional, like really like, you might not even see their face on it, like it's just art or something like that, which I admire in some ways, because they probably have a little bit of a better separation going on between their job and their life.
And then there's also the factor of like them not even being the person controlling their page or something.
That's true too. I mean, that's a real thing. You never know. Or I got a DM once from someone, I forget the content of the DM, but it was asking me a question, and then they were like, thanks Louise, or whatever intern is reading this. I was like, I do not know what world you think I'm living in, but I'm reading all of these things.
Wow.
Like I hold the keys to my social media, me and me alone, like no one else is doing it. So it's an interesting thing. It's tricky. And I'm lucky that I genuinely, like I said, I genuinely enjoy people and I genuinely enjoy social media. Because I know I have a lot of people in my community who are very talented musicians who perhaps resent social media and resent feeling that they need to have some type of social media presence in order to advertise their art or music, which I can relate to too. I think I always get a little tiny pang of jealousy when someone tells me they have no social media, because that doesn't really feel possible for me right now. I know for a fact that as much as I just said, you know, Instagram's a tool I use and I don't work for it, it does generate income for me just in the fact that it's free advertising. And that stuff, I could talk about that for hours because it's really fascinating to me and there aren't any clear answers. And that's the most interesting stuff to talk about. It's little shades of gray, like, I never know, you know.
For Facebook, how is your, I guess like do you have a Louise music page, or so you have that, and do you have your own personal page as well?
I do, and so that's kind of interesting too, because like on Instagram, I turned my personal page into the business page, right? That's not an option on Facebook. you have to make a whole separate business page, which the business page has now grown and is doing great on Facebook. But I mean, that might even be, Instagram's probably still where I get the most interaction, but my personal Facebook page is probably a close second to that because I've had it since 2009, you know, I've had it forever. And so I have a lot of friends on there and a lot of people from all walks of my life, on there. And I think more young people should use Facebook to advertise their business. I don't think people should count it out because there are some people that only have Facebook. And the people that I think are more active on Facebook than other social medias are people that are using social media mostly from a computer. So a lot of times that kind of translates into maybe a slightly older generation of people. Or even people that don't have a smartphone, or their smartphone, like I have a really, really good friend who's my age who, you know, she's a new mom and she doesn't have a ton of money in her budget to be getting a brand new smartphone. So her phone is pretty old and it no longer works with Instagram. You know, like Instagram has sort of outgrown her phone. Like she updated Instagram and now it won't work on her phone. So she pretty much just uses Facebook. Anyway, there's a lot of people who Facebook is their only social media, and I think I've kind of connected to some people that might not have ever heard of me had I stayed purely on Instagram by using Facebook. And I'm really close with my family, and they're spread out all over the place. Like my parents and siblings live in Pennsylvania still. My mom is from Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, so her mother still lives here, my grandmother lives here, but I'll always be on Facebook because, you know, my parents are really proud of me and that's how they stay in touch with what's going on. They do not have Instagram, they don't know how to use it. And so I really do have a soft spot for Facebook. I know that kind of there seems to be a mass exodus from Facebook. I don't agree with all of their business practices, that's for sure. Like some of that stuff with the Mark Zuckerberg trial was really freaky, honestly. But I have a soft spot for Facebook because it keeps me connected to my family and my hometown. Because that's where a lot of my, you know, I'm still Facebook friends with a bunch of people from high school, and I do. I have a little soft spot for Facebook. I really do. Yeah, but
I always have this argument with people that MySpace was better than Facebook.
I can't even argue because I didn't have a MySpace.
You missed out. Okay, so
tell me all about it.
Do you know anything about MySpace, or you just kind of like?
Yeah, I know about MySpace. I do. I know kind of the stereotypical things about MySpace. That there were a lot of like scene kids on there, and I know that you could sort of do your own coding to really personalize the page.
Yeah, that's what made me feel like MySpace was better. It was more like a real website for yourself. Like it felt more like a profile than what Facebook feels like. Right. But with MySpace, you could put like music on your page, and like people could see like the song. You put playlist on there. People could see like all the music that you like and stuff like that, which
that's pretty cool.
I thought it was super helpful because I would go to some of my friends' pages, and even though we'd hang out together, I didn't even know some of the music that they were putting on. I was like, oh snap! So I would like go listen to that music. Now I got new music because somebody put me on that.
It's pretty cool.
And then you could this brought on a lot of fights, but you could have a top friends, and so you could put you could put like.
I already told you I'm conflict avoidant, so that scares me. I'm like, oh no.
It was pretty bad because you would come to school and they'd be like, so and so has me on their top friends, but I'm not on this person's top friends.
Yeah.
People would just be upset.
I'm sure. I can only imagine.
But they had it to where I think it started out with just like 3 or 5, and then they started adding on to it. And then at one point you could have like 20 top friends or something like that. And I was like, oh, they're catering to the people who probably got yelled at.
Yeah. Well, maybe some people have a bunch of friends. You know,
yeah, right.
I'm. You know, it's funny though because I'm sure in like 5 years, Facebook will roll something out where you can play a song on your page.
Probably.
As some new thing.
There was.
Although it's been happening forever.
There was a lot of things that MySpace had that Facebook like slowly started getting.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of like the difference between like Samsung and iPhone.
Right.
Because there would be like things that Samsung had that I feel like iPhone is more like Facebook and Samsung is like MySpace, because there were things that Samsung phones have, like the swipe to text, like you could move your finger
Yeah.
over. And iPhone got that like years later. Remember, I feel like it was like this new technology. It's like Samsung and Bing had that.
Sounds like you have a Samsung.
Yes. But I'm considering getting an iPhone because it's just a better phone. Like it's for sure. Apple technology is way ahead of other technologies. The only problem is I like customization. I like to like change things. Like as soon as I get it, I want to change. Like my background, I want to change ringtone, stuff like that.
Right.
I don't do that anymore. But Apple's like, no, this is a perfect phone. Don't mess with it.
Yeah.
So that, or even their laptops or whatever, they don't like to customize things. And I have a
which for some people who don't know as much about technology, for them that's really user friendly. They're like, oh, okay, it's already done.
Yeah.
But for people that like to really get in there and MySpace it up, they're like.
And that was a crazy thing about, again, with MySpace, is you were talking about how you can change everything. Just being able to customize it just felt like you were in control of it. But Facebook is kind of like a template. It's like, hey, you put this here, put that there, okay, you're done. But MySpace was like open world.
And Facebook, it's the same as those other social medias. I mean, like I said, I'm super trigger happy with unfriending people because people wild out on Facebook, I think more so than other social medias.
Oh, yeah.
People really go nuts on there and say some crazy things.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Have you ever like gotten into a true argument with somebody on Facebook?
Oh man, I wouldn't say argument, I would say debate.
A debate.
I would say definitely a couple of times in college.
About what?
I would guess, if I had to guess, it's probably someone on there being homophobic in the name of science, and then me coming at them with some facts, and them coming at me with their own facts, and I really, why I say it would be more of a debate than an argument is like, if I really don't do this anymore, but if I were to engage with someone in that type of discourse, I mean, I'm gonna come at you with like links to articles and like names of books, and like I'm gonna really come at you with some facts, I think I'm good at arguing. I really do. Like, you can ask anyone I've ever dated. Like, you're not gonna line an argument with me. I'm a really good arguer. But it's just energy I don't need to be expending. Like I don't do that anymore. I have a question for you. Okay, did you listen to any of my music?
Yeah, I listened to it.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool.
You thought I just kind of skipped over it?
No, I just didn't know. I mean, it doesn't matter either.
I mean, I can't tell you like names of songs or anything. I just listened to it and I was like, oh, she's different. And,
yeah, well, cool. Yeah.
I enjoy people who are just different. Like I enjoy.
Yeah.
I call it, so there's two different things. I call things weird and then I call things strange. If it's strange, I don't know. Like the strange is really hard for me to explain. But to me, weird is just like you're just different. Like you're not normal. And some people think of that as a bad term. I actually looked up the origin of the word weird, and it came from. It was like
for stuff like that.
I think it was something like witches. And they called, it was like some sisters, and they called them the Weird Sisters.
Weird Sisters.
And I forgot like the actual like original term of how it like changed into how we use the word weird today.
Yeah.
But it didn't mean like how people use it nowadays. But to me, I just use the word weird as like you're not what everybody else expects. And I love weird people because they're different.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess I'm trying to like, it's not very subtle, but I'm trying to like steer our conversation towards the music a little bit, because I really could talk about social media all day long.
Oh, no.
But yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think I don't really know always what people are expecting if they haven't heard my music. Because I don't know, because I'm out here writing it, but I think some of the difference just comes from my background as being like a nerdy little band kid, and like I loved being in marching band and I loved musicals and just, you know, really was super into that world. And then I grew up and like discovered music, like modern music that I really loved too. And growing up, you know, my parents listened to like Bruce Springsteen and the Beatles and Al Green and a lot of kind of like classic, really well-liked classic soul and rock music was sort of like what they liked to listen to. So I think that influenced it. I think that my personal love of musical theater and band and orchestra arrangements influenced it. And then the third like element into that mix is like growing up and I don't know if you know any of these artists, but like St. Vincent, she really inspires me, and she's more like rock, but it's like indie rock, and she writes all her own songs, and she's amazing at the guitar. I love Fiona Apple.
I don't know who he is.
You should look them up,
Yeah,
Fiona Apple's more from the 90s, but she's great too. So I guess when I was, and I've written my own songs forever. I mean, I've played the piano since I was 5 years old, and I've been writing little songs on it pretty much since then.
Okay.
I'm not going to say the ones I wrote when I was 5 were good at all. But yeah, that was such a huge part of my identity. Like all growing up, I was like a music kid, band geek, whatever. So when I went to college and moved down here, I guess I kind of wanted to explore another side of my identity and like really get involved with learning. And I was an English major in college and was really involved with like reading and writing and learning about all of that type of thing, but still played the piano, still wrote songs, but just truly just for myself. I think some of that was some insecurity too, that I was still growing up and becoming confident, and you know, it's a tough thing to do, to play someone a song that you've written for the first time. It's scary. You know, it's because it's so personal. Anyway, so all of those things combined, I think are kind of what make up my sound, and it helps that everyone in my band has a similar background to me. Like they all have this sort of like band or orchestra background, so we kind of speak the language, if that makes sense. We all know music theory, and I can kind of speak to them using maybe some band terms or whatever, and it'll make sense to them. And I think the sounds I'm trying to create make sense to them too. So lucky that I really get along with my band, and we all vibe with the music we're trying to make. But I appreciate that you say it's unique. Really, so I have the band influence, and then the artists that really influence me, like they might not even quite sound like my music, but what influences me is good lyrics. My lyrics really matter to me a lot, and I listen to lyrics in other people's songs. Like I try to avoid cliches as much as I can, and want to write something that will pique people's interest and make them want to listen to it again so that they can hear the words again. You know, I'm inspired by a lot of female vocalists, and I'm also really inspired by people where part of their deal is that they are also incredibly talented at their instrument of choice. So like I play the piano, and that is a big part of a lot of my songs, and that's me playing the piano in all the songs. So that really inspires me too, when it's like, okay, not only is this person a really great singer or a really great songwriter, but they shred at the guitar or whatever it is that they do. So that's kind of trying to take that and put it on the piano.
So are you performing as you, or you perform as the band, or both?
Both. So
it's both.
The whole thing started, I go by Louise Page as my name, partly because that's kind of what I want, like, but I started out as a complete solo act. I think I played my first ever show by myself in 2016. And I was going by Louise Page, and it was just me on a keyboard. Super briefly had a duo going on with a guy who plays upright bass, and we went by Carmen and Page. Carmen was his last name, Page was my last name. That didn't last for very long. he went on a big trip that was like months long, and it just sort of fell apart. We just stopped playing music together. But so I went back to solo Louise Page, billing myself as Louise Page, and then in 2017 I recorded my first EP and got a little group of people together to play on the EP because I've always heard horn and string and drum parts to my songs, or thought of them in this bigger context, but was just performing them on the piano. And part of, I think, why I love the piano is because you can create these really huge sounds with it. You know, you have 10 fingers, you can be playing 10 different notes at once if you really want to. Like, you can make huge sounds on the piano, so I love that about it. So I get this group of people together to record the EP, and then it kind of snowballs into, well, would y'all like to play these songs with me at the show where we're releasing the EP? And a couple of people in my band, the trumpet, saxophone, and violin players are all from that original group of people who recorded on the first
That's awesome.
EP. Yeah, I really love my band. Like, they are great, great, great people. So then, flash forward to 2018, we're recording our second EP, and a couple people in my life were like, is it weird that you're still being billed as Louise Page because you have this band? And I was like, I had never thought about it. I was like, I don't really think it's weird.
Yeah.
There's a lot of artists that do that go by their name, but they have a band. But this is when I super bonded with my band. I like brought it to them, and I was like, I don't want anyone to feel like they're being shortchanged or unappreciated. Like, should we, I guess my thought was to come up with some type of band name that was like Louise Page and the Parchment or some, I don't know what, like some, band thing. And all of them, all 5 of them were like, no, like, it's Louise Page, like that's the band. Like, you write all the songs, you sing all the songs. So that was cool. I felt very supported by them on that. But I just bill myself as Louise Page. I'll generally say in the advertising if it's a full band or a solo show.
Okay.
But I think actually that it's ended up being really great for my branding and my advertising too, because whether I'm doing a solo set at a piano lounge or playing a big giant show with my whole band, you're still searching the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I like that I'm billed the same way. I hope it doesn't confuse anyone too much, but.
How'd you find your band members?
So let me think about this. I've got, I somehow knew Michael Lorenzi is my saxophone player. I'll give them all little shout outs because I'm just it. Michael Lorenzi is my saxophone player, and I knew him somehow. I couldn't even tell you now because now it's so like, he's in the band, that's how I know him. But I knew him through some mutual friends, and I think even the studio I was recording at recommended, like, oh, you should ask Michael to play saxophone. So he played saxophone on that first album, and Anne Elizabeth Craig plays violin. And I knew her through, we have a couple of mutual friends, like a couple of close mutual friends, but she and I didn't know each other that well. We're now super close friends, which is really cute. We've kind of befriended each other through the band. So I kind of knew the two of them through mutual friends. And then the drummer and bassist on that first album were also just friends. They're not the drummer or bassist I have now. And guitar is Calvin Lauber, the same guy who records my stuff. If you hear any guitar on the recorded tracks, that's him playing guitar. And every once in a while, he'll join us for a live performance too. He works full-time as an audio engineer, so he can't always do that. But once in a blue moon for like a big show, he'll play guitar with us. So then we kind of had trouble locking down a drummer or bassist. And the drummer and bassist we ended up with now, a couple years later, are Michael Todd plays drums. There's 2 Michaels in the band. And I know him from college. He was a couple years older than me, but I knew him from college. He started playing with us back in 2018. And then in 2019, we got a bassist named Gunter, who I also know from college. And then I skipped over something. Rewind a little bit. So Michael Lorenzi plays the saxophone, and then he was the only one who recorded on that first album in 2017. But then for that live show, he was like, hey, I know a couple of guys who play horn who I think that would be great to include on the show so we can get some harmonies going. And I was like, okay, cool. So he introduced me to Jawan Crawford, who plays trumpet and still plays trumpet in our band, and Victor Sawyer, who plays trombone, who no longer plays with us, but did record on one of our albums, go on a tour with us, and play with us for about a year. And he and I are still friends. So, not a super interesting answer, but it kind of just all came together. And I feel really lucky that I have a band that I really love and respect and get along well with. There's not a lot of drama there. It's really good. We have a lot of fun.
I actually asked because, as I said, I've been trying to find music people in the area to work with. But I actually hit up, so there's I pretty much do like rap music, and that's about it, like right now. I've been trying to get into like different genres. That's why I was like hoping to meet you and be able to work with you sometime. But there's this one guy, I tried to get him on the podcast, and he actually ended up signing with Rock Nation, Jay-Z's label.
That's cool. Good for him.
But I asked him to get on the podcast, and he ended up texting me like the day before, the day of, like, yeah, I can't come. I was like, okay. But then I found that out. I was like, oh, yeah, he's probably pretty busy.
Yeah, damn. That's really cool, though. Yeah. That's very cool.
But it's been difficult, I will say the least, to find people to like actually work with and stuff like that. Because I mean, I do all my stuff here is see my computer, and I've
got a cool setup though.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 MIDI keyboards actually. So I went to Full Sail University for audio production.
That's cool.
So I actually started doing my music before that. I started doing music around 2017 and learned a lot from my friend Leek. And after I did all that for, let's see, in December 2018, I started Full Sail University. And then I learned a good bit from Full Sail, not a ton. I did 10 straight months, I think it's 10 straight months. So they gave me like a certificate for audio production. But I was going to get my bachelor's in it, but I already have a bachelor's in business management. So I was just literally doing it for fun.
Yeah, that's cool though.
To learn.
Yeah.
But, so then I started doing that, and I've found 2 people that I actually still keep in contact with from school. One is DeAndre Porter. He goes by Flight Pilot D. We've made multiple songs together, but he actually lives in New Orleans, and I drove down to New Orleans and hung out with him, and we made some music, and then he's came up here, we made some music, and we actually made a video together as well.
Yeah.
But it's so difficult to not only find somebody to make music with, but also like somebody that has the same mindset that you have.
It is.
The mindset thing is how when you're in the same room together, you got that same energy, and everybody's just on the same page, and then you're able to just go. Like things are just flowing.
I think a lot of it is like a respect thing too.
Yeah.
I think it would be really hard to make music with someone who you didn't respect as a musician.
Yeah.
Where are you gonna go? Like you don't want, and I think that might kind of be, first of all, like everything you're saying, I feel really blessed that I have this instrument that's so important to me, the piano. I've been playing it, I tell people I've been playing it for over 20 years, and then they look at me and I feel like they think I'm lying. It's like, no, I've been playing it for 21 years.
Wow.
Like I really love the piano, and I love it too because it's like, this is, I think any craft or instrument is like this, but it's like lifelong learning.
Yeah.
Like I still have so much I could learn on the piano.
Yeah.
But because I have that instrument, when I first got started, like I said, it was just me. Like it truly was just me and a keyboard. So I think sometimes you do have to do stuff by yourself and kind of show people what you got to get them interested in working with you. On top of that, I really, really respect everyone in my band as a musician. Like I think that they are all incredibly talented musicians. And while I write the songs that I write, I come to them with piano part and lyrics, and usually a pretty strong concept of how I want the song to sound and where I want them to play. They write their own parts to a degree, or it's kind of a collaborative thing where they'll come up with something and we'll tweak it, or I'll either be like, that's great, or I'll be like, really, I really don't want you to play there, I'd rather you play here, or I was more thinking something like this. But
could you actually go in depth on that? Because so I make my own beats,
sure,
and then I'd write my own lyrics, and then that's a song right there. But for a band, it's different.
So
explain that whole process, because I don't get it, and I respect it so much.
I think that this is where I'm the youngest person in my band too.
Oh, okay.
Actually, now that we have Gunter playing bass, I think he's a couple months younger than me, but we're about the same age. But before he joined the band, I'm the youngest person in the band by a couple years. So it honestly really touches me that they all really do respect me as the band leader and as a musician, you know. That is really touching. And you do, I mean, if you want to be a musician and you want to be a performer, even on like a local level, or, you know, I'm trying to go for a bigger level, but just where I'm at right now, like, you need such a thick skin because people are mean. And also, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And so, you know, I've seen just one-off, I get way more support than hate, but, you know, I have seen things that people probably never thought I would see, of people saying like, oh, she's not even good, whatever. So having my band like really respect and support me is super important to me because I really respect them. You know, I think that they are all really talented musicians, so that they respect my musicianship means the world to me. So like I said, we all kind of have this band background, and in fact a couple of people in the band work at Stax or as a music teacher in some other respect. Yeah, like Michael Todd, my drummer, works at Stax with percussion and teaches percussion to kids. Jawan Crawford, my trumpet player.
Oh, Stax a recording studio?
I think I'm thinking of...
I thought you were talking about this pancake place.
Oh. No, I'm thinking of... I don't even think I'm talking about the recording studio. I'm talking about Stax Music Academy. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, you got me confused for a second. I was like, wait a minute. No, not the pancake place.
That's funny.
And then Jawan, my trumpet player, I mean, he plays trumpet in like 3 other bands, you know, maybe even more than that, and teaches as well. So, okay, so anyway, that is the first thing that's really helpful, is like we all speak the same language. And I'm not even saying that like you need to read music or know a bunch of music theory or have a band background to be in a band, but like if you're trying to collaborate with people, you want to make sure that you're all on the same page. And you all sort of know what you're talking about. I think the biggest mistake that people make in collaborative settings is pretending they know something they don't know. Like, I'll be the first person to be like, what does that mean? I'm sorry. Like for example, because my background is on classical piano and in a band, a literal marching band, I, in a lot of ways, am still playing catch up when it comes to recording technology or, you know, running sound at a show, like anything that has to do with like electronics and music. I'm still learning. Past couple of years I've learned a lot, but you know, I'll be the first person to say like, I don't know how to do this, please tell me. So I think that's really important, knowing what your area of expertise is and knowing what it isn't. Like, having said that, I'm also not interested in having someone tell me something about playing the piano if they don't know what they're talking about, because I'm like, I really know a lot about this, you know, whatever. So you got to kind of have confidence where you need it and humility where you need it, right? So when I bring a song to my band, I usually send them a recording of it, of me singing and playing it first, so that they can kind of have it in their head. And then if they want it, I'll send them the lyrics and the chords as well. Usually the chords is kind of all they need, but like the chord structure. And then I can even, well, we're on a podcast, so maybe I shouldn't show you anything visual, but like,
I mean, you don't have to Show the camera.
Yeah, like I can show you later in my phone notes. I do a lot in my phone notes. I'll have, for a song, I'll have maybe even like, I'll show you something. Some songs you could listen to for inspiration, or like, here we go. So.
I like your rings.
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, podcast listeners, you can't see my rings either.
So she's got like this snake ring on. Is that a skull?
There's a keyhole, a bug,
it's a bug.
kind of more regular ring, and a snake. Okay, so like see this song, we've got the inspo that's like a couple of maybe actual songs and like the vibe we're going for, the instrumentation we're going for.
It's pretty in depth.
It is in depth. I think about this stuff pretty
cool.
in depth. So, and that really came from the fact that we were going to record that song too. So you really need to know what you're working with. But I know that my band appreciates this particular thing because most of them have individually come to me and told me this. But what I tell them all when we're learning the song is like, I'll be like, okay, Anna Elizabeth, you play the violin. I don't play the violin. So like, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to play it or get super nitpicky about the exact part that you write for the violin, because ultimately that's your instrument and you're an expert on it, right? So like, whatever I write, I guess really what I'm thinking about too is just the actual mechanics of playing instruments. It's different than making digital music.
Yeah.
So you can write something that might feel like you might think it would sound good, or on paper it sounds good, but when that person actually goes to play the trumpet or the violin or whatever, you've written something that's really technically difficult for them, or perhaps even unnecessarily so. You know, like, I don't know, and I don't play those instruments, so I'm like, I'm not gonna, you know, so more what I'll do is I'll come to them with the song and the inspiration for the song and the vibe and all of that, and then I'll be like, okay, you know, this part of the song during this bridge, I really want to have a cool interplay between the piano and the violin. So maybe Anna Elizabeth will come to rehearsal with something kind of in mind, and we'll work through it together, and I'm pretty honest with them. If something is not what I'm looking for and not what I wanted, I'll be like, no, like, that's not what I want here.
Yeah.
Or if they play something that hadn't even entered my head but I love it, I'll be like, yes, keep doing that. But, you know, I give them a framework, and then they sort of write their own parts, or we write them together. You know, we might play through the song a couple times and they're just sort of jamming on it, or they come up with a cool horn line. And then really, I think when the song starts to super come together is when you play it live, which is really scary for a new song, because it's like, oh God, like, you know, the kinks aren't necessarily fully worked out, you know, but.
How often are you playing a song before you actually, like, play it live?
My poor band, it totally depends. I've really sprung stuff on them before, like, we haven't learned a new song in a couple months, because I released this full-length album last summer, and I'm still writing songs, and I have songs to teach them, but we've kind of been focused on really perfecting those songs from the album. But definitely in the past, there have been situations where, like, I write a song, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm like, hey, I know this show's in like 3 days, but can we learn this song? Like, I think it's really good. But it totally depends too, like, different shows have different levels of pressure. If we're playing a house show, I mean, come on, like, or that's different than a show where someone is paying me a guaranteed amount of money and it's like we're expecting a certain number of people to be there. Like, I really don't think, unless I was feeling crazy confident about it, I would put anyone through playing a brand new song at a show where that's more professional, where we're getting paid a bunch of money or whatever. But not that we ever get paid a bunch of money, but you know, there's different, I guess, stress levels or like professionalism levels. Like, I'm in an interesting place where, like, I still play house shows, but I'm also like playing at Mid-South Hemp Fest this year, like some festival type of things locally.
I saw you were in Chicago.
That was a cool thing. Yeah, that's a whole different beast. So part of how I'm able to be a full-time musician is that I have a bunch of side hustles that all are still involved with music. So that's why I'm still like, yeah, I'm a full-time musician. Like I teach piano lessons. I also have a ukulele student, play the ukulele, teach her ukulele.
Nice.
And I play solo piano locally at this place called Zebra Lounge, which is a piano bar in Overton Square. And it's a little bit different than anything I would be doing with my band or even for a solo performance because I'm not really playing originals there for the most part. It's I'm playing covers on the piano, people can make requests, I get tips, and the bar pays me a certain amount of money to play there. And I usually make pretty great money in tips. So that is sort of like, that kind of supports me paying my bills and investing money into the songs that I write, which is what I really, really care about. So anyway, when I first started at Zebra Lounge, which I love working there, by the way, like it is so fun. It is. You should come by sometime when I'm playing. There's no cover. It's a bar, really. You know, it's like a lounge bar type of place, but the energy in there is just so good. It is a really happy place for me. Like I love that place, and they have live piano music every single night. They're kind of doing it in like the tradition of a speakeasy or something.
Oh,
and I'm grateful for them too because I think it's made me a better musician because the shifts are pretty long. You do get to take breaks, but they're 5-hour long shifts, and it just made me a better performer and musician because it's a different type of performance. You know, people are requesting songs, and so you maybe have to play a song you've never played before on the fly. I have a little app that'll give me the chords to songs, so I'm not doing it totally on the fly, but I mean, there's still a lot of improvisation involved, and like
That's impressive.
it's hard. Thank you. It's a tricky thing. Like you have to know a lot of music, be good at the piano, be a good singer, and again, this quality I was talking about earlier of patience comes into play because you're dealing with drunk people. You know, God bless, but like that's a whole thing. So anyway, love the Zebra Lounge, and when I first started playing there, they told me the original Zebra Lounge is in Chicago. If you ever want to play in Chicago, you can. So it's not a chain. There's just one other Zebra Lounge in Chicago.
Yeah.
So eventually the opportunity arose for me to travel to Chicago. I had a good friend that was already traveling to Chicago to tattoo. They're a tattoo artist, and they didn't want to go alone. And I was like, oh my God, well, I'll go, and it can be for work because they have a Zebra Lounge up in Chicago as well. So I went up there and played for 3 nights at that Zebra Lounge, and I'm so glad I did because it was really cool. The Zebra Lounge in Chicago is from the 1920s, so it was originally a true speakeasy during Prohibition. It's the second bar in Chicago to get a liquor license, which makes it the second oldest bar in Chicago.
Wow.
And it's a little bit more of a hole in the wall than the Zebra Lounge in Memphis is. You can tell that the Zebra Lounge in Memphis was super inspired by the one in Chicago. The decor is really, really similar, but the one in Chicago is smaller, and you can tell it's older, and it was just cool to go up there and meet the guy who owns both of the bars and play in the original Zebra Lounge. And the story behind Zebra Lounge coming to Memphis is a longtime bartender at the Zebra Lounge in Chicago moved to Memphis and was basically like, I really think that the Zebra Lounge model would work here in Memphis too. And like in Chicago, there are other piano bars that are pretty competitive with the Zebra Lounge. Memphis doesn't really have other piano bars. There are restaurants that maybe have piano music playing, and there's Silky O'Sullivan's downtown has like the dueling pianos, but it's still not quite the same. Like this is truly like a piano bar. Yeah. And it is so cool, and I love playing there. But it's kind of like a little bit different than my other performance because it's a lot of covers, and I don't have my band with me. Yeah.
I mean,
but it's fun.
Do you get a chance to play stuff that you're, I guess, like working on by yourself, and do you feel comfortable with that? Because that can be kind of sketchy because you play something for like a group of people, and you know, playing in Chicago, you're not playing for people who know you and stuff like that in Memphis, and you go out there and play a song that you've been working on. It's like, I don't know if they're gonna like this or not.
I don't think I would play a song that I was working on at the Zebra Lounge. I really don't, because they are paying me to, you know, they're not really paying me to go up there and workshop my music. They're paying me to like play Tiny Dancer, you know, like that's kind of more the energy. But I do play original songs that are already like fully formed, recorded and released songs. I play those there sometimes because I get a lot of freedom on what I play. Like I take requests, but I mean no one's forcing me to do anything. I can play whatever I want really. But sometimes someone I know will show up and request one of my originals, or sometimes I just kind of feel like I can sneak one in here or there. But I don't think that would be a place where I would bring a song that was just a little baby fledgling song. I would bring that more so to my band, or even like close friends, like, yo, I'm working on something, I think it's kind of cool, can I play it for you? That type of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I don't know. Time will tell. Maybe someday that'll happen. I don't know.
So back to your college days. How was that as far as like, so you said you were English major, right?
Uh-huh.
So did you feel like that kind of crafted who you are as an artist? Like just, first of all, the college environment, you know, the people you're around and like what you're doing or whatever, as well as, you know, what you majored in school as far as like art. Like art is, I feel like it's something that's lost in young people nowadays. Like they don't really understand how impactful it can be, and I don't think it's their fault. I think adults, quote unquote, of an older generation don't realize how much that can impact kids. There are becoming like more schools and stuff geared toward art, but like when you're in college, you're like living away from your parents and stuff like that, and you're around a bunch of people your age. So ideas can just swarm you.
Yeah.
So being a musician in college, I think, would be the best. I didn't really do music at all when I was in college. So.
Right. Well, I kind of didn't either. College was interesting for me. To be honest with you, it was a really tough period of time in my personal life. I really had a hard time in college, not necessarily scholastically, but like in my personal life, I was having a really hard time. Had a couple of really bad relationships, and not just bad, like, oh, darn it, that was bad, but, you know, like dangerously bad relationships. And I had a lot of people I really loved in my life who were doing a lot of drugs. I had a couple friends die of drug overdoses. I was just having a really hard time in college. I was really going through a lot. So I didn't really, I think, I told you that I played a lot of music and was in a band and all of that in high school. In college, I would go to the practice rooms on campus and play the piano by myself. But I mean, a lot of people I was friends with in college didn't even know that I played music. Seriously, because I was going through a lot, and I think this is why art is really important. Like, if you want to be a full-time artist and make that your career, like, that's beautiful and that's great. But when I was in college, that wasn't on my mind at all. Like, it was an emotional outlet for me, you know, writing songs and playing the piano. It wasn't really for anyone else. It was really just for me. And at the time, as you know, this often goes hand in hand with having a hard time. My self-esteem was pretty low, so I didn't really, I really didn't think anyone would be interested in hearing what I was writing. Truly, I didn't. And I was really hard on myself too. I'm still my own worst critic, but you know, I was too hard on myself. I was like, I didn't think I was good enough to play music full time. And I'm feel really lucky that I got a lot of support and encouragement when I did first start playing music out and about, that kind of encouraged me to keep going. But what I'm really grateful for, even though it was a really, really hard time in my personal life, I'm grateful for those experiences in some ways, because you know, a lot of art was born of that pain. That's like the best thing I think you can do with pain, is like, it made me a better person, it made me more able to relate to other people's pain, and it made me a better artist. So even though it was a hard time, and it was definitely not a very productive time for me as far as like my musical career, it was in some ways. I was like I was a little seed,
Yeah.
planted. But what I'm grateful for, so grateful for, is that I was a creative writing major in college. And if anyone out there has ever been any type of writing or art major, a big part of that is critiques. So, you write your short story or your poem or whatever it is, and then part of the class is people critiquing your work. Usually it was done anonymously, and then after the critique you would be like, that was mine, whatever, but that I think was really important to me because it killed my ego a little bit in a way that needed to happen.
Yeah.
I got my feelings hurt a couple times in college with these critiques, whatever, but it really ingrained in me this concept of, first of all, things need to be edited and reworked. You're not gonna make something perfect on the first try, and people are gonna really hear that if there's like thought and working and reworking that goes into something. There is something that can be nice about just very raw, like improv one-off type of thing. That's true, but editing is a really important part of the writing process, whether you're writing words or music or lyrics or whatever you're writing. And that kind of got me comfortable with sharing my art with people because, like I said, I was sort of insecure about that. And I think that sharing my poetry and stories and whatever with people and getting a lot of positive feedback was important. Like, okay, people want to hear what I have to say. So I think that's actually my biggest takeaway from college was my embryonic stages of like going through a lot in life and sort of having to grow up and like get stronger and use art as an outlet for that. But then also I was a creative writing major, and I use that all the time. The editing and workshopping that I learned doing that, I bring to my music. And that's part of, too, why I care about my lyrics so much. Like, any song that I have recorded, those lyrics have probably been edited 20 times. Like,
really?
Every single word, like, not a single word is unintentional.
That's crazy.
I really care. Like, I really do. And really, a big thing I care about is cliches. Like, I do not want to release a song that's all cliches that we've all heard a million times in a million other songs.
Yeah.
So I let myself write the song, or a lot of them start out as poems, just totally however it turns out, like I write it. Then the first edit that I go through is usually I'm going through and looking for cliches. Like one that I can remember from my last album is there was this line that was like, "Isn't life funny? Isn't life grand?" And I was like, that's just kind of cliche. Like that's just sort of like a platitude that we've all heard, and it doesn't really mean anything to me personally. So I deleted it and made that lyric something different. That's not to say that there are zero cliches in my songs, but if there is one in there, I thought about it and decided that that was the best lyric for that spot. Because sometimes you can also overdo it and kind of it comes off as like you're trying too hard.
Yeah.
Like people who speak like they're reading from a thesaurus, like I don't want to come off like that either, but man, I really do think about my lyrics really hard, and then that's usually what I write first is the lyrics, and then that will kind of inform the chords and the tune and the mood and the vibe of the song.
So are you coming up with like melodies and everything in your head and then you write the lyrics, or are you doing lyrics and then you write the melodies, or is it a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. I would say most of my songs start off as lyrics, and then I'll kind of sit down at the piano and come up with a chord pattern and come up with a melody. But every so often, I would say very rarely is it a thing where like I have a cool melody that I then add lyrics to. It either starts with the lyrics or they come to me together. Like like more things than I'd like to admit, there are a couple of arguably my catchiest hooks or whatever are just, I like sing all the time. I sing to my cat, I sing in the shower, I'm singing all the time. And there are a couple of things I've written just singing in the shower where I'm like, wait a minute, like, okay, I need to write that down because that's really good. Like, I have this song on the album I released last summer called Snakeskin, and the chorus is like, I'm shedding my snakeskin, you're never gonna touch me ever again. I wrote that in the shower. Like, I just was singing that in the shower. That chorus over and over again. And I was like, this is really catchy. Like, I have to write it down.
Yeah.
So then the little verses in that song or whatever, I wrote after the fact. But then if you go and listen to that song, most of the song is just that one catchy little hook that I wrote. So some stuff comes to me pretty easily like that. Some things I edit over and over and over again. Every song is different. Every song I think I write a little bit differently, but I think the most common process would probably be writing a poem, which usually happens when I'm upset. Like I said, it's like a way to process emotions. So I'm trying to work on writing some happier songs because a lot of them are sad or angry because I write them when I'm upset. But regardless, I'll write something and then kind of let it sit for a while, and then I'll return to it and see if I can come up with a song out of it. So I have a lot of writing that's sort of maybe could be a song in the future, but for now it's just kind of chilling.
Yeah.
I really do write all the time, and some of it is not good. But the good thing about writing all the time is you can kind of pick out the gold from the bowl.
Do you have a ton of songs that you've like finished out writing and you just haven't came up with the music for it yet?
I definitely have some of those. I don't know what your definition of a ton is, but I definitely have probably, like I said, I do a lot in my phone notes just because I always have my phone. So if I need to write something down really quick, that's where it ends up. I would say I have maybe 7 to 10 full sets of lyrics that need to have music put to them.
That's a lot.
Or
that's a full album.
Yeah, or really a lot of those too, it's that I'm not happy with the lyrics yet.
Yeah.
Like there's something in them where I'm like, I just don't know yet if I like those lyrics. And then outside of that, I mean, maybe 20 to 30 just fragments.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's just a chorus of something that I
wild.
like it. Yeah, so I spend a lot of time writing, and
That's
I've
wild.
been like, I mean, that's kind of why I was a writing major in college, because I've always loved to write.
Yeah.
I think that full circle back, that is very helpful to me on social media too.
Yeah.
I think this is totally discounted. A lot of social media is being able to express yourself clearly and concisely. Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's a skill, you know, like, I'm not always good at it, but I do think that one of my strengths is writing, and that is a big element to social media. Not even just on Twitter, like on Facebook and Instagram, like the caption matters as much as the image. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know? And you can have an image that's so strong that the caption doesn't really matter, or a caption that's so strong that the image doesn't really matter, but for the most part, they go hand in hand. And especially if you're trying to advertise something to people, that's a tricky one, like to try to advertise something to people without them feeling annoyed.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, writing is really important to me, and I write all the time, and yeah, I really do probably have a whole EP in my head right now, but I'm
That's wild.
trying to, I think this time with this EP, I'm going to do things a little differently, because I have 2 EPs and an album out, right? And all 3 of those, my band was kind of learning the songs in the studio as we wrote them. And a couple of songs I feel like have evolved to an even cooler place throughout live performances and rehearsals than the recorded version. Nothing is that different, truly, but like there's a couple songs that I think we've even improved on since we recorded them. So I think for whatever I record next, I'm going to teach them to my band and perform them live for a few months before I record them.
Okay.
I don't know why I haven't done that in the past, honestly, but I think it'll be better in a lot of ways. I think it'll kind of help us really understand the song before we record it, And it'll just save me some time in the studio. It'll be less of like workshopping the song and more of like we kind of already know
Where are you recording?
what we're trying to do. I record at Young Avenue Sound in
Young
Cooper
Avenue
Young.
Sound, okay.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, you would love it because it's full of cool gadgets. And toys. Yeah.
I actually haven't been to any studio around here.
You should check it out. I
just do
know.
all this stuff here, so.
Last year, Young Avenue Sound did an open house. I don't know if they're doing one this year, but if they are, I will let you know about it.
Cool.
It's a pretty cool place. They're super nice there too.
Shoot, I was gonna ask you something about your lyrics and stuff. Oh, when you have all your songs put together for your albums, are you trying to figure out like which ones belong together, or are you like, I've got these done, so these are gonna go on this album? Because like your music, I think is a little more focused, if that makes sense. It's not very widespread as far as like how many different categories it can fit in. You've got your own lane. You're not trying to go everywhere with it. So are your songs just like, all right, we finished these 10 songs, this is an album or this is an EP?
Yeah. I'm so interested that you say that. I'm interested in what category you would say it goes into, because I struggle with that, because I do think I think there's like punk and rock and blues and singer-songwriter and pop, and like I struggle to categorize it.
I would.
Honestly.
Just
yeah,
honest,
you just
like,
wouldn't? Oh, okay, well that's cool too. Yeah.
You're Louise
Yeah.
Page. At the end of the day, you're Louise Page.
I put it's categorized under pop, because I
Is it
have to
really?
pick something to put it
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Spotify and iTunes, because pop is a pretty overarching category. I would
It
say
is.
indie pop if I really had to pick a category, but
Okay.
but there is a lot going on that's. I also think some people hear pop and where their mind would go is not exactly the music I'm making.
I mean,
so.
they're thinking like Bruno Mars or like Taylor Swift,
Right.
that kind of stuff. Like, it's not. I don't know. To me, pop music, I don't listen to it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love artists like you, like underground people is what they call it. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of rap in the rap industry, that's like underground rap and stuff like that. I listen to a lot of people that aren't that famous because, I don't know, I feel like their music is more from their heart and from their soul.
Yeah, well, and if you really start getting into it, like,
And
they're.
they wrote their lyrics themselves.
Yeah, there's. If you look at like I saw this thing, you would probably be interested in this. It was someone redid the Coachella poster, but instead of the artist names, they had what label they were represented by.
Oh, wow.
And it ended up being like 5 labels, like just not very many at all.
Yeah.
And then when you delve into that further, when you look at really popular music that's charting, a lot of the same names appear time and again behind the
Yeah.
music, which I think is sometimes why not pop music isn't pop music, but popular music
Yeah.
can end up sounding a little bit homogenized, because it's the same people working on it. It's not even that it's bad.
I would think that's how
It's
pop
that-
music got its name.
Yeah,
Just being
popular. That is where it came from, yeah. Yeah, but okay, so like I have 3 albums out, they're all different. The first one I recorded, and I think they get better progressively as I'm learning what I'm doing, but the first one I think is more all over the place, because that's the one where I'm coming off of a few years of not sharing my music with anyone. So the songs, a couple of the songs on the album I wrote right before we recorded the album, and a couple of them were like 5 years old. So they're just, I feel like that album is a little bit more all over the place, because the songs were kind of like my 6 favorite songs from the last 5 years. So they're just like all over the place. Then the next EP I came out with, I wrote right after I went through a hard breakup. And the EP is about that. And I wrote all of those songs in a really concentrated period of time. And in my eyes, that EP kind of like tells a story of that breakup, and like ends on like a hopeful, positive note. And truly, I wouldn't even say that that EP is about a breakup. I would say it's more about like me reclaiming myself and like learning to love myself as a single person and be okay with that. So I would say there's more of like an empowering vibe to that than a like sad breakup vibe, Then this EP I released last summer. Those are for the most part songs that I wrote, in the year between the 2 album releases. There is one song on there, a ukulele song that's super old. I wrote it in like 2014. Kind of just got lost in the archives, and I was like, oh, I like this song. But yeah, I definitely, I think that the songs on this album, it's less of like a concentrated, like it's definitely about this one event in my life, but I think they go together because I wrote them within a concentrated time period, and I definitely thought about the order that the songs are in on the album, for sure. I think that a lot of my songs probably has to do with the English major creative writing thing, but I think a lot of them are like little stories. Like there's a storytelling element to the song, you know? So the order that they went in on the album was important to me, yeah.
I mean, I think that has kind of gotten lost in music, because like a lot of things, so like with rap, a lot of people put skits in their music. Do they do that with like the people that you listen to and everything?
You mean like talking in the middle?
Yeah, like legit skits. Like, it sounds like a movie is playing. And so there'll be like 2 songs and then skit. And then like 2 songs and then skit.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was like albums used to be about 18 songs long, and it would be like something where you just hit play and just let it go. But now it seems like, oh, where's that song I heard on the radio? And then you just play those 3 songs, and then that's all you want to listen to.
Yeah, it's tricky. So I really did try to make an album that you could play from start to finish, and it would be like enjoyable and make sense. There is a lot of advice out there that's basically like, don't do that if you're an independent artist. Like, and in some ways, I think that if you're really trying to play the algorithms of Spotify and social media, it might be smarter in some ways to release a series of singles. And I recognize that, and that is something I actually want to do this year. Like, I'm not done making albums, but I think this year I might release a single or 2, more so because
Did you not do singles at first?
No, never.
What?
Never done that.
What?
I never released a single. More so because I have a couple of songs that are ready to be released, but I don't have like a whole album ready.
That's
you know?
Wild.
But like, yeah, I made this full-length 10-song LP and thought about the order of it and stuff because it's my art, you know? I felt like doing that. It's like, it would be like telling a painter, like, hey, instead of making a whole series of paintings, it would make a lot more sense if you were just one-off doing paintings and posting them. It's like, okay, for social media that might make more sense, but this is still an art and a craft, and I really wanted to make an album in the traditional sense of an album.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of that album, Silver Daughter, we released last summer. Gotta plug it, okay? Silver Daughter, it's streaming on all streaming services, Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Music, Amazon, wherever you stream music, it's there. And would love if you checked it out. You can search Silver Daughter, or you can search my name, Louise Page, Louisepage. That's me, yeah.
How about that music video? When I was watching it, I was like, I was curious about just how you put everything together and like what was going through your mind, like.
For which music video?
The one where it's like you're in like the church, like a wedding chapel.
Right, Future Runaway Bride is that one.
Yeah.
So like I said, I love making music videos, and part of it is because I love watching music videos.
Yeah.
I mean, there are songs where I only am emotionally invested in the song because it's such a great music video that now I love the song, you know? So, so I wanted to make a music video for Future Runaway Bride because I already had the strong visual. Like, when you were a little kid in the car, did you ever like look out the window and like imagine you were in a music video or whatever? Right? Okay. So yeah, so I did that too. And especially for my own songs, I mean, almost every song I've ever written, I have some type of visual in my head for the song. Some of them are not super well formed, and some of them are really fully formed, like fantasy music video going on in my head. And Future Runaway Bride was one of those where I was like, oh, if I made a music video for this, I absolutely know what it would look like. It would be, you know, super funky, like 70s colors bride running away from
That's something I noticed was like
from some a-hole at the altar. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast, so I've been censoring myself. Okay, but so I already knew what I wanted. Then in 2018, I released a music video called Blue Romance, and my friend Sam Leathers directed it. So I reached out to him like, well, you want to make another video? And he was like, well, I'm actually working with this group now called Studio 143. And their office is in the same building as Young Avenue Sound, in the Young Avenue Sound building. So I ended up meeting up with them. Super great group of people. So Josh Cannon and Barrett Kudus ended up directing this music video, which was fun for me too, because Barrett and I are like old friends from my old retail days. We worked at Urban Outfitters together in like 2013. So I was like, yes. So they were just a delight to work with, and they definitely helped me a lot. But I'm also really impressed with them because I feel like they plucked that out of my brain. Like it is exactly what I wanted it to be. But so I came to them with a really developed concept, and I also had that concept of me being in the video as two characters. So in the video, for those of you who haven't seen it, go watch it. You can search Future Runaway Bride on YouTube. It'll pop right up. So I wanted to exist in that video as a character like Band Louise and also Bride Louise. So I play I'm actually wearing these pants in the video.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but regardless, so it's sort of like it's a pretty heavy-handed metaphor, you know, like Band Louise sort of coaxes Bride Louise to run away from this guy who sucks. And that was a big thing for me too. I was like, in this video, I don't want anyone to feel bad for the guy. Yeah. You know, that's not really the point. So he needs to clearly be terrible. So like in the video, he's like drinking out of a flask and all, you know, all that. So that's the other thing, like you can't get too complicated with it with a music video because you got like 3 minutes to tell your story, you know, but that was the basic story I wanted, was to have these shots of a wedding, like a really funky wedding, interspersed with shots of my band playing, and eventually you see the band Louise almost as like an apparition in the audience and in the aisle, like encouraging the bride to run away. And then the really big fun last shot is like the bride running away, and then the whole bride's side of the audience like dances and runs away down the aisle with me. So it came together great. The color palette was important to me because I'm just a sucker for a beautiful aesthetic and a color palette, and I think it's nice to watch, you know.
At first I was like, why does it look like this? And then I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, but no, that was just my little fantasy music video in my head, was that whole concept of you know, because I also kind of did that in my life. I feel like I used to, when I first graduated from college, I worked as a public librarian, which like support our libraries. Libraries are great, but it did not personally make me happy, you know. And I had a big life change in like early 2018, where I was like, I want to be a full-time musician. I'm not happy in this relationship I'm in. Like, I'm changing my life because I was on a path, you know. Like I could have stayed on that path and stayed in that relationship and stayed at that job, and it would have been easier in a lot of ways. And like my family was proud of me, you know. Like I could have done that, but I was really, really unhappy. So I didn't. I changed it up. Really, in a super short amount of time, I quit that job and ended that relationship and moved by myself to a little apartment in Midtown, and worked part-time retail for a year until I sort of felt secure enough to do music full-time. So in some ways, the metaphor in that video is sort of about that time in my life where I kind of left these traditional expectations and followed my dream. Cheesy as it sounds, it's true.
No, it's good.
You know?
Getting a little more personal, as far as like you talking about being bisexual, did that just kind of click one day, and then as far as like letting people know, like friends and stuff like that, or were you always just like on that path?
That's an interesting question. So I feel like I kind of always knew that I liked girls and guys, and I had crushes on girls and guys, but I don't know if any bisexual listeners out there have the same experience. It's interesting because it's just way easier to just act like you're just straight, because there's no explaining that goes into that. I had crushes on guys too, so it wasn't hard and I wasn't lying to just really kind of focus my energy on that, So then I have an older sibling who uses they, them pronouns and is transgender. But before they came out as transgender, they came out as gay. Or at the time they were identifying as a lesbian. So that would have been, they probably came out and introduced their first girlfriend to my parents when I was 18 or so, kind of young, but about to be an adult. I might have still been in high school. I don't know, but I was young adult, old kid,
Yeah.
So they came out, and my parents were really supportive. They were really sweet. So that, probably helped me in a lot of ways. I did not have to break that ice. So then when I was in college, I had some crushes on women or little flings with women. I've never had a girlfriend personally. I just never have. I've only ever seriously dated men, and in some ways it's because I'm pretty fearless with men. I know how to flirt with men, and with women I get really nervous because
So you think you're holding you back?
Maybe, yeah, because I get nervous, and I don't know. And some of it too is it's just really different. In this society we're living in, people assume that you're straight, and I would never want to make anyone uncomfortable if they think we're just friends. I don't want to you know what I mean? There's a lot of, it really is a super different energy. Trying to flirt with someone of the same sex is more intimidating than opposite sex.
I mean, I'm sure it's super difficult just to figure out. I mean, some people, people say that some people are just obviously either straight or gay, but then there's some people it's hard to tell.
I think it's rarely obvious to me. I mean, there's some people that fit more into the stereotype, but there's people that you would swear are straight who aren't, and vice versa. So I think we all kind of do ourselves a disservice by enacting stereotypes like that.
Labeling.
Because
there was a guy I thought for sure was straight, and then somebody was like, no, he's gay. And I was like, what?
Right. You just can't really know. So it's funny because I don't really know, I didn't really think of it as a big secret. I thought, I especially with the people I was close to in life, I was pretty open about the fact that I was attracted to men and women. But this past year, in 2019, on National Coming Out Day, I decided to post something about it. And part of why I decided to post something about it is because I know that I'm really privileged in a lot of ways. I'm young and able-bodied and white and educated and cisgender, so I just am privileged in a ton of ways. So I was like, man, if this could help anyone at all, I should post something. Be I'm happy National Coming Out Day. I'm bisexual. I didn't think it would be that big of a revelation, but a lot of people didn't know. I don't think my parents knew. Sorry, Mom and Dad. They were fine with it, it was fine. But a lot of people didn't know. For me, it wasn't something I was keeping a secret or super concerned about. It's been crazy though, because since coming out, I think bisexuality is kind of has its own unique struggle outside of being gay or straight, because there's a lot of erasure of bisexual people. People don't buy it. They think you're either straight or gay. And something I think is really interesting, we live in a patriarchy, people. Sorry, politics are leaking into my podcast here, but what I've seen is that men who identify as bisexual, people think that they're just gay and afraid to fully say that they're gay. And women who identify as bisexual, people think that they're straight and just experimenting or trying to be hot or something. So I think that's super interesting, that if you identify as bisexual, the world at large is just going to assume you're into men. I'm have you seen women though? Because you're assuming the wrong thing. Okay. But no, so that's been weird because For the most part, have gotten a lot of support and positivity, and a couple of really, really sweet messages from like younger women who are like, I'm bisexual too, and like been afraid to come out, so like, thank you, that's really sweet. And I did have one really negative thing happen where someone was going around telling people that I wasn't really bisexual and it was fake and I was doing it for clout or whatever, which was so negative. I've never really experienced that, you know. That person didn't say that to me directly, but I had several people coming to me and telling me that they were saying this. So that was strange. I didn't really know what to do about that. I was like, well, I mean, it's such a personal thing too. It's like my sexuality is so personal, you know, and I think that was, even though it sucked, it was probably an important experience for me to have, to sort of realize that, like, I mean, that's small potatoes to what a lot of people go through.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that is such a strange symptom of our world that we question how people identify themselves.
Yeah.
But only in certain contexts. If I was saying I was straight, no one would be like, okay, she's not really, you know, people would just accept it. So, yeah, I guess my main takeaway, also to anyone listening, is you really don't owe anyone any explanation for something as personal as your gender and your sexuality. You really don't. And if they don't understand it or don't believe it or are willfully choosing to be ignorant about it, then that's really sad for them. But like, I think most of us go through a journey of trying to learn about ourselves. And so if someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm bisexual or gay, or they come to you and say, hey, like, I think I've been thinking a lot about my gender and I'm transgender. These are the pronouns I want you to use. Even if it's confusing to you for some reason, like, I think it's really important that we respect other people's identities, because you know, who knows what's going on in your head better than you yourself.
Yeah.
And there's so many contexts where this isn't questioned at all. Like, if you're walking your dog and someone's like, oh, your dog is so cute, can I pet her? And you're like, ooh, actually, it's a boy. They're like, oh, sorry, him? No problem. But for some reason, if a person who throughout their life has used certain pronouns changes their pronouns, like, a lot of people, it's not just like they're innocently having trouble with it. It's like people get really nasty about it. They really question it or say, like, this is, you know, bullshit, like, that person is making this up for attention or because it's trendy or whatever. And like, I don't know, I think people should open their minds a lot more to things like that. I don't think people make stuff like that up for attention, because any attention you get for the most part is negative.
Yeah.
Why would you want that, you know? So anyway, I think people's gender and sexual identities are super personal, and they are, I think, a lot more on a spectrum than a lot of people realize, you know? And however you choose to identify is valid and beautiful, and wish we lived in a more accepting world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. Because like I said, when I posted that thing on Twitter about being bisexual, I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. But to someone out there in the world, it was a big deal, to the point that they called into question my honesty and my identity and my motives for saying that, which, yeah, it was hurtful. It really was super hurtful. But, you know, ultimately, it doesn't really matter. You know, ultimately, I rose above it, and that's just one person, you know. And it's one person, and hopefully it was a positive thing to more than one person, so.
By any chance, have you ever been to Vancouver?
I have been to Vancouver, but it was when I was a kid, so it's a long time ago.
So me and my wife went to Vancouver close to Thanksgiving, and they have a really big, like, LGBT environment. Like, they're the streets in, like, middle of downtown. So picture, like, on Bill Street. It's rainbow color.
That's awesome.
They have that in downtown Vancouver. It's just
like
it's actually like a three-way intersection, and all the crosswalks are rainbows. And then at night, they've got lights that go down the whole street that are like LGBT colors.
I love that. And for me personally, I also just love rainbows, so I'm not even like, it's a win-win for me, because I love bright colors and rainbows and all sorts of things. But I think, I don't know, I think a lot of people in our world, and social media doesn't help because it connects us all, which can be positive or negative, but I think a lot of people who for whatever reason are holding a lot of hurt or hate inside of themselves can be so hateful towards people who express themselves in a way that is outside of the norm. And that's never made sense to me at all. I really don't get it at all. And I think that I hope that eventually things get more open in so many different ways. Like, I think that men should be able to wear dresses if they want, even if they identify as straight. If that's something they want, they should do it. And of course there's some men who do that, but I think in our world right now, in Memphis, Tennessee, if you're a man wearing a dress, people are going to think you're gay. You know, like,
sure.
They just are. But I'm like, but why not? Like, why?
If that's what you like, go ahead.
Why not? Or like throughout history and throughout society, there have been I'm also interested in fashions. Like, we could go on a whole thing about this, but like,
cool.
High heels were originally invented for men to appear taller. They were originally worn by French nobility in the 1700s to appear taller, which really, if you think about societal constructs of men and women, it kind of makes more sense for men to wear high heels and be taller, you know? And then somehow now it's a super feminine thing to wear high heels. But I think the more educated I get on like societal constructs and clothing and the societal constructs of gender in our world, it's that's when it really started breaking down for me that like it's all just kind of BS, you know, it's all real arbitrary. In less than 100 years ago, pink was considered a boy's color for baby boys, and blue was considered a girl's color for baby girls. And sometime in the last century it flipped, because blue was always considered to be a more soft, submissive color, and red was a more, masculine color, and pink is just like soft red, whatever. So like a lot of this stuff that we really assign to people, and like that some people get genuinely angry about. Like there are people who would see a man in a dress and get genuinely angry.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's just a lot better things to be angry about. And it's really all kind of just arbitrary, and just we built this world, like, I don't know. So whatever, that's my 2 cents about it.
I think people for sure, they focus on the wrong things. They get upset about the wrong things, and I value, as I said, like I like people who are weird. I value people who are open-minded, and I value people who love to express themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's why I like doing this podcast, because it allows people to get vulnerable. They allow them to talk about whatever they want to talk about. Right. No censorship. And then also, you just get to like just think, and you're like spilling your ideas. And sometimes people don't do that. People don't think, and people they don't act upon their ideas. And like on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, whatever you're using, there's those censorships kind of hold people back from like how they want to express themselves. And then also just like the comment section can bring people down, and it'll won't allow them to express themselves the way they want to in the future, because they're like, oh, so-and-so said this about me, so I can't post this anymore.
I know, so that's kind of like, I really carry that with me in the way that I engage on social media, specifically on my public pages. Like, I really do, like, I try to leave positive comments and be a positive, inclusive person. And sometimes that really is a little bit at my own expense, like I have to deal with some hate on social media and just let it roll off my back. Because I don't have to let it roll off my back, but I choose to, because like I was saying, like that whole weird experience with, it was really just one person, but one person getting super hateful towards me about being bisexual. And I'm out here like, I'm a young, thin white woman, and this person's being really hateful towards me. I'm like, man, I don't even want to know what some people have to deal with, some people who are marginalized in more ways than I am, like, must deal with absolute hell. So I'm, I try to like be strong through those things, because I'm like, I don't even know, but yeah, I think freedom of expression is really important, and it's a really beautiful thing. And I guess the main thing I've never understood about it is like gender and sexuality is so personal. That if for some reason you don't or can't agree with someone's personal gender or sexual expression, then why don't you just leave them alone?
Yeah.
Go live your life with people who agree with you, like
Exactly.
it's so personal.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you, really. But yeah, I moved to the Bible Belt, so I did this myself, really.
So how do you, speaking of that, how do you like the difference between, did you just live in Pennsylvania, or?
I did, yeah. So I grew up in central Pennsylvania, kind of in like Amish country, close to where Penn State University is. But my parents are both from the South. My dad grew up in North Carolina, and my mom grew up in Memphis. So when I was looking at schools, I knew I wanted to go to college, and I knew I did not want to go to Penn State, which would have been way easier. It's really close to my hometown, but I was like itching to go somewhere else. I really wanted to go to a city, which to me, when I moved to Memphis, it was like the big city because I grew up in a small town. But it kind of all ended up working out because I got into Rhodes, and my grandmother lives here, and so it was sort of like I get to move and experience a different part of the country and be in more of a city. But my mom is from Memphis. She visits a lot, and my grandmother lives here. So if I get really homesick or whatever, it still feels in some ways connected to home. Like I grew up visiting Memphis to visit my grandma, whatever. And it's so funny because there's a lot of people, almost exclusively people who grew up in Memphis, like born and raised in Memphis, who kind of hate on Memphis a little bit. Like they're like, oh, like Memphis is the worst. Like I hate it. There's nothing going on. But I think Memphis is just like social media. It's like what you make of it and like what you choose to do. Because when I first moved here, the fact that there was, I would say any night of the week, if you want to hear live music, you can.
Yeah.
Like you can find it somewhere.
Yeah.
That blew my mind when I moved here. And before I ever played shows or anything, I was going to see local live music all the time, which ended up really helping me when I started busting into the music scene because a lot of venue owners already knew me from me being a regular going to their shows,
Okay.
But yeah, that was fascinating to me when I first moved here, how much live music there was. I thought it was amazing. I still think it's amazing. And it's cool that that's like what I do now. And I think the musical history in Memphis is amazing. I think it was really eye-opening for me to move here because I was really sheltered in a lot of ways where I grew up. The town I grew up in is maybe 95% white. Seriously. And then probably the largest minority is Asian people.
That's crazy.
Because there's a lot of people from Asia who come for Penn State.
Yeah.
So I thought that I was so woke and like understood the world so much, and then I moved to Memphis, which is a majority black city, and really had to confront a lot of things that I did not have to confront in my hometown, like how my privilege, really. I really had to confront my privilege when I moved here, and I think that that was really ultimately good for me. I remember, this is just my experience, like, please don't sue me, Rhodes College. It's just what happened to me, but I moved here. The second day of school at Rhodes, I called my mom crying, tears on the phone, because I was like, Mom, all of my professors and all of the girls on my hall in my dorm are white, and all of the yard workers and cafeteria workers are black, and it's stressing me out. And no one else seems stressed out, and I'm like really disturbed and upset.
That's crazy.
And my mom was like, yeah, well, you moved to Memphis, and like you should do some research on like the history of Memphis and how the Jim Crow South existed and how that still affects people, because that's what you're seeing right now. And so I just that is stuff I did not see in my hometown, because the black kids at my school, like, their parents were professors at Penn State, and there weren't very many of them.
Yeah.
So I just like thought I was so woke, but I had never lived anywhere where racial politics were really, really relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that now too. Sometimes I'll see people on the news discussing like police violence or something, and I'm like, this person discussing police violence, you know, for all, they might not even know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I guess I don't have any super fully formed thoughts on this, but like, I think that was so formative to me as a person, and like being a truly woke person. Not that anyone is fully woke. Like I'm still learning about the world. Like I still have things to learn. But I am glad that I moved somewhere so different from where I grew up, and I think more people should do that because I feel like I understand our country and our world a lot better having moved somewhere where the demographics and the history are really different from where I grew up. Like, I think it was helpful to me. And I also think that, like, the cloth cuts both ways. Like, I had that negative experience with feeling like I'd gone back in time 50 years when I first got to Rhodes. But then also, you know, there are people, in Memphis doing amazing things. And like, I don't know if you've heard of The Collective. On Instagram, it's and then it's like CLCTV or something like that. But it's really for Black artists. It's like a space for Black creatives to do their thing. And I think it's awesome. And I think it needs to be there. And I think that some people who maybe don't live in Memphis or don't understand the culture of our city might, you know, like the whole like reverse racism thing, like, well, like that's racist towards white people. Like that's not real. I really don't think that that's a real thing at all. You know, it's not a thing. It's not. But working at the library revealed a lot to me too. I worked at the public library for 2 years, and just seeing like the town I grew up in had one public high school where everyone went. And I got a great education at that public high school. Libraries work really closely with public schools, and like seeing how terrible some of the public schools in Memphis are. I don't know, like, I don't have like a big final point for all of this, but just that moving here really opened my eyes to a lot of like world issues and like really issues of race in America that I think I was fully ignorant about before I moved here. Like fully. Like I thought I wasn't, but I was. I didn't know anything. I didn't know a single thing. So that's a pretty crazy element to living in Memphis. And I really do love this city. Like I really love it, and it's taught me a lot. And it's I love the music in Memphis. I've made amazing friends. But having said all of what I said about how like Memphis is still sort of feeling the effects like socioeconomically of like the Jim Crow South or whatever, I can understand why some people leave.
Yeah.
It's not always an easy place to be because of that. I think that once you get into your communities of people, it's an amazing place.
Mm-hmm.
But structurally, there's a lot about Memphis that is wrong and hard. And like I don't think it's fair that there are whole communities of people that have these super, super underfunded public schools while the wealthiest people in our city send their kids to private schools.
Yeah.
Can't really blame them because they have the money to do it, and the public schools are all terrible. But like at a certain point, it's just like keeping this divide, that's this socioeconomic divide, you know. So Memphis has a lot of structural problems, but I think it's a really beautiful place. I've met a lot of beautiful people here.
You think you'll stay here?
Yeah. I don't know. I never thought I would stay here. I thought I would leave. After college. I really thought I would leave after college. But then the music stuff kind of is what kept me here at first, because that ball started rolling. So sometimes I'm kind of on the fence about it. I love Memphis. I have a great community here. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, why would I leave? I've got everything I need here, and it's a low cost of living, and I've got my foot in the door here. But then other times, you know, I think like, man, if I really want to expand my career, maybe I do need to move to LA or New York or something like that, but I just don't know. Because also with social media, again, we're way more connected than we used to be. I don't know if it's true that you need to move to a huge city to make it. I don't think that that's true, but I'm kind of trying to figure that out right now. Definitely for the next year or two, I'm in Memphis.
Yeah.
But perhaps my 5-year plan includes going somewhere else. I don't know. But I love Memphis, and I want to support this city because I love it. And if I ever did make it to some larger platform than what I have now, I would want to give back to Memphis in some way.
Oh, okay.
You know?
I see what you mean.
Because I love Memphis. I really do.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't really, I guess, represent their city, like where they're from, or like what, or the city that made them is like a phrase that people use.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm from a small town, Oneonta, Alabama. Oh, I haven't even really told you anything about
I know. Who is this man? I don't know him.
So I'm from Oneonta, Alabama.
Yeah.
I think it was population of like 6,000 when I was there. But let's see. I joined the Air Force at 21 and lived in North Dakota. And then that's where I met Rachel. Actually, she's from Ohio.
Cool.
But we moved
Up my way, up in PA, you know?
Yeah, she's actually from Northeast Ohio. She's
Cool.
from Atwater, so it's like
That's really close to Pennsylvania.
yeah. I think it takes like 45 minutes to get to the line of Pennsylvania. But dang, what was I gonna say? Oh, just living in those different areas. So like we traveled a good bit. I said we went to Vancouver and we go all over the place. But just living in different places, that has like shown me different people and like how people are. So there's a guy I actually worked with in the Air Force, and he was from Idaho, and he was like, yeah, the first black person I ever saw was when I went to basic training. And I was like, wait, what?
That's crazy. Yeah. At least my town wasn't that small, you know, like it wasn't that small. But I think about this because there's all of these big conversations happening in our country about race. And I just, having my own one experience of just moving just two places, just one place to the other, I'm like, I don't know if like we should be having, I don't know if all these people are qualified to even talk about this. You know what I mean? Because how can you speak about what race in America means in Memphis if you've only ever lived in central Pennsylvania? You can't.
Like the men making laws for women and their
don't even get me started on that. Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms that I'm also really, really passionate about. Yeah, but no, I just think, something that I learned in college that really kind of blew my mind and opened my mind and my heart a lot, where we live in a society that is, at its core, sexist and racist and homophobic. Like, it is.
For sure.
It is the easiest type of person to be in our society is like a straight white man.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get the least flack for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard for some straight white men to hear because they're human beings who have been through life and they don't want to hear that like your life isn't hard. But it's not saying your life isn't hard. It's like your life isn't hard because of your race, gender, or sexuality. If it's hard, it's for other reasons.
The path of least resistance.
Right. But so, so in college I had this great professor that was basically like, if you really want to, become an open-minded person, you're gonna have to accept that even if you're a person of color, or if you're gay, or if you're a woman, or whatever, like even if you fall into any of these categories, like to a degree, you have your own internalized racism and sexism and homophobia. Like every single person has that, and you have to accept that it's there if you want to get rid of it. Because, we all know that person that's like, maybe they say something that's low-key racist and someone says something about it and they're like, whoa, like my best friend is black. It's okay, you're not really trying to grow or learn or change at all, are you? That I feel bad for your best friend, like whatever. But that really blew my mind because I was like, that's true. And I think that makes life hard for people who are in marginalized communities of any sort, because like as a woman, I have my own internalized sexism that I need to deal with and get over before I can really love myself, you know? And I think for the most part I've done that, but I just always thought that was a really interesting concept, that like our society at its core is racist, sexist, and homophobic. And all of us are carrying that inside of us in some way. And if you don't address it, it'll thrive. You have to address it to destroy it, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me. So I guess that is where I will get political, is like identity politics, because that really matters to me. Like I think everyone deserves to love themselves and accept themselves and have an equal shot in the world, and that is just not the way our world is right now.
No.
So so I try to be a voice for that, and also like it's also really important to me to be open to learning things, you know, like I don't know everything at all, or like I'm white, like I'll never know everything about race, but I need to like accept that and embrace that and like listen to the people in my life who have dealt with that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. So that's all really important to me.
I think the easiest way to do that is just surrounding yourself with people who are different.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I think people are genuinely, I guess, like scared to surround themselves with people who are different.
Right.
Because people are also scared to just be uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like being uncomfortable, but I like putting myself in uncomfortable situations. Number one, to find out stuff about myself, and number two, to find out stuff about other people.
Yeah.
Because that's the easiest way to learn, is just to be
Yeah.
around people who are different, so you can like, oh, you say that? Why do you say that? That's the way you do that? Why do you do that? So it's just fun to me.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's like the quickest way to humanize people too. Like
human.
right, like there's all these stories of people who like were homophobic until they had a gay brother, and then they were like, oh, that's just my brother. Like, oh yes, okay, you get it.
Yeah, you get it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But anyway, it's crazy to me how delicate these topics of conversation are in so many circles, because it's like, man, my whole thing is just that like everyone is equal and everyone is worthy of the same respect. And weirdly, not everyone agrees with that. You know, I would think that people would, but no, they don't. You know.
So what is your next step? What you got next?
Step. Okay, so I am making another music video that we're filming in 1 week exactly, next Saturday. It's for the song Paw and the Honey, and I'll be working with some burlesque dancers in it. It's going to have kind of like a burlesque theme, which I'm really excited about. My next show is, when is this airing? Is this going right up online, or?
Whenever I finish it. I've got to edit the video and then all that stuff. So.
My next couple shows are they're all in Memphis, January 27th at the High Tone. And then the next show after that will be February 14th, Valentine's Day at Black Lodge.
Nice.
I love Valentine's Day.
Really?
I really do, yeah. I think of it as a day not just for romantic love, it's just a day of love.
Yeah.
And to let the people in your life know that you love them. And I also love pink and red as a color scheme. You know, like some people are shopping the Halloween seasonal decorations. I'm shopping Valentine's Day seasonal decorations. Like, I love Valentine's Day. So that show should be really special, and I'm hoping to get maybe some even limited edition merch together, like some pink t-shirts or something. I don't know exactly what I'm doing yet. And also in early February, I'm recording a little single at Young Avenue Sound.
You gotta start releasing singles. That's crazy to me.
It's going to be a little bit different than some of my other singles. It's a little more stripped down. Okay. I think it'll be cool. So I'll send you that. I'll send that your way. And if you've never heard of me as a person, my name's Louise. Thanks for listening to me talk. And you can find me on Instagram at Weezy Page, WEEZYPAGE, or on Twitter, sweet_Weezy. So SWEET_WEEZY, or on Facebook, it's just my name, Louise Page. So check me out, listen to my music. I have had a lot of fun talking to you.
Well, it was great talking to you for sure. And as I said, it's always good to just have people on. And so I used to use I had a Canon camera, and I was doing these podcasts, and it was just the camera only works for like 30 minutes. The video does, so that's how long the podcast worked. And I was like, let me start out with that also because I don't have a ton of listeners, so people probably aren't going to stay tuned in for over 30 minutes, but now I've got this camcorder, so it's long-winded now. So being able to open people's minds and open up the conversation allows them to speak more freely and be able to say what they're really thinking. So.
Do you edit it at all? Like, are you going to edit it down at all?
Oh, no. So I'm basically, I had
sorry,
an intro.
everyone gets to listen to everything I say. Yikes, so that's okay.
I basically just add an intro and then just let this whole thing play out and then an outro and that's it. So.
Well, neat.
For sure.
Yeah. This was really fun.
Yeah,
I had a great time. And, I brought you some things.
Oh, nice.
I brought you some little gifties. It's a t-shirt, that's why I asked your t-shirt size weirdly when we were talking. And you'll see I've wrapped the city on the shirt. We were talking about that too. Hey. And then I got my card and some stickers for you too.
Awesome.
And I should have brought your wife a shirt too. I just didn't even
No,
know.
you're fine.
I would have done that.
I told you nothing about me. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I gotta do stickers.
Dude, people love stickers.
Yeah,
That is real.
These are amazing.
Thank you so much. So that logo, the Louise Page logo, was designed by my friend Lauren, and her name's Lauren Holterman, and her Instagram is Holter Monster. She's pretty amazing. She's a great graphic designer.
This is dope.
Gotta shout out my friends, and then that sticker, the rose with the tongue sticking out, was designed by my friend Claire, the tattoo artist I mentioned earlier, and their Instagram handle is Stray Dog Claire. So if you need any tattoos done locally, that's who I would recommend.
You can see those stickers.
Yeah. Cool. So last thoughts, I guess, are to love each other and make a lot of art. Yeah.
That's a quote. By the way, when I said something earlier about all y'all being on the same page, that would have been a good band name.
Hey, the same page. It's just like Jeez Louise. At some point in friendship with me, someone says something about Jeez Louise, and then they're like, oh my god, that's your name. Yeah, okay, yeah.
All right, thank you everybody for tuning in, and see you next time.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to the podcast. And if you would, hit the subscribe button. The subscribe button allows you to, subscribe to the podcast. And if you give me a like and give me a comment, that would help out as well. Commenting allows you to have a conversation with me, and liking it allows me to know that you actually like it. And if you dislike it, hit the dislike button twice. That's a real help out for me. So, comment, like, subscribe, and let's keep it rolling.